What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to a Monday show, gang. Solid weekend. Uneventful here. Nothing crazy going on outside of watching my New York Knicks lose, so that wasn't great. But a good weekend of DFS, fun sports slates, covering the various baseball slates that were going on. Had a bunch of Brewers on Saturday, had a bunch of Rays on Saturday. Unfortunately, I didn't have a bunch of Brewers and Rays together with, 17 runs for the Brewers, I think like 14 for the Rays. Monster, crazy scoring day on Saturday. Complete opposite yesterday, I felt like. Yesterday was kind of a wipeout type slate. But a good, fun weekend of baseball. Hopefully everybody did well. Hopefully we had some good results. I know we saw... Who posted something good? That might have been in the basketball. Some results in the basketball channel. Love the Kush got a WNBA $1,000. The guys are doing a good job covering WNBA. That has nothing to do with me, but if you're in our Discord, which is linked for free in the description below this video, don't have to have a subscription, don't have to be a member at the site or anything like that. These guys are doing a good job, independent of anything having to do with me or the website, of covering the WNBA. So check that out. We had a $1,000 win in there the other night. We had Tall Tale popped a little one for $80 in a small contest. Not a bad result. 32nd place in a large field, small entry fee type contest. So a nice little payout there for his result. That was yesterday. Hopefully we had some big wins over the weekend. Share them when you guys do hit things. Always makes my day go better. Gives me something to talk about on these shows. We've got a pretty good slate. 6-gamer. Nice gentle way to start the week today. We've got Monty Pritchett here. Happy Monday to you too, buddy. It is a good day to be alive. Andy's here. Lone Wolf is here. The answer to your question is yes, Lone Wolf, of course. Cujo, good to see you, buddy. Hope your Monday's going well too, pal. And everybody else who's out there keeping silent in the chat so far. Say hello when you arrive. Say hello if you're catching up on the show later on. We're going to go through all 6 games like usual, put a little bit of depth on this thing. Probably have us out around 5 o'clock. Plenty of time to build lineups, but we got a lot to talk through. So hit that like button as we get started. Subscribe to the channel. We're like 50-something people away from 1,000, as Gundacker was telling you guys the other day. We get a little bit of a bump. So if you're new, if you're just hearing this for the first time, or if you haven't subscribed to the channel, but you're here every single day, just click that little subscription. It really, honestly does help. It's probably outside of just picking up a subscription over at rotoscouts for under $1 a day. Probably the most helpful thing you could do for us. So I'd appreciate that. I appreciate everybody. Everybody who comes every day, whether or not you like the show, honestly, whether or not you, or actually hit the like button. I hope you actually like the show. Whether or not you subscribe at the site or even on the channel. I just appreciate the hang with everybody showing up every day. We've got an interesting pitching slate to talk through. It's a little bit top heavy. But there's some good names up top. You're obviously paying a pretty good premium for them. There's some big spots for bats to work with today. Should be a really interesting small slate. Take a look at the Vegas board to start things off as usual. Just updated this moments ago. Angels at the Bo Sox in Fenway Park. Red Sox are on a very healthy 5-1-8 implied total. They're going up against Tyler Anderson. Anderson can break off effective games. He just had one against the Yanks. Went 6, 2 earned runs on 5 hits. Struck out just 3. He's never going to be a big premium strikeout guy. But against a lineup where most of the key bats are left-handed, the Red Sox do have some interesting-ish platoon players for when they face a lefty. It's not the greatest spot in the world as far as the Red Sox go. I can absolutely see them destroying Tyler Anderson. I'm not really questioning it, but that's a beefy total. On the other side, the Angels drawing a 4-4-2. They're going up against Richard Fitz. I give Fitz 4 and change. But I don't think we're getting much more than that. He went 3 in his return to the show in his most recent outing and back on the 27th of May against Milwaukee. Faced 12 hitters, 2 hits, 2 strikeouts, and a walk. I just don't think we're getting depth there. So I do think we can maybe target some Angels bats, some of those hard hitters. Mike Trout's back in the lineup, so that's obviously a big boon to that lineup. So we'll definitely get to that one. Brewers at Cincinnati, definitely a bats-friendly park and kind of a bats-friendly game. Brady Singer on the mound for the home team and Aaron Savali going for the Brewers. So 4.5 runs on either side in essentially a coin toss environment. Looks very good for bats. I question the utility of either pitcher while I do like both pitchers in of total vacuum, and I'm talking about like, lower end guys. I'm not saying that either of these guys is an ace, but these are typically two guys where you can find some quality from a cheap price. It just doesn't feel like that kind of day. It doesn't feel like that kind of slate. Vegas is agreeing in that game environment. A 9-run total overall, not great. The Tigers, the White Sox. Jack Flash on the mound for the Tigers. Definitely a primo spot as far as pitchers go. He's got the White Sox checked down at just 3.5 implied runs. Meanwhile, his team's carrying a 5.15 against Jonathan Cannon. Looks like a great spot to maybe consider doubling up some pitcher with some of his bats to boost the win equity there. Definitely an interesting spot, all things Tigers. Padres at the Giants. Pods coming in at a slate low 3.29 implied total because they're facing Logan Webb, who is a terrific run suppressor when all things are going right. He's also very, very good at keeping the ball in the yard. Giant Stadium, or the whatever the hell the name of that Giant Stadium's over there, and that's not even Giant Stadium anymore. That's MetLife now. But whatever the hell the name of the park in which the Giants play their games is called, definitely favors pitching a little bit there. So slate low 7.5 run total overall. But the Giants are pulling a 4.31 that might be a little bit sneaky. They're going up against Stephen Kolek, who's been kind of messy for earned runs over his last few games. He did have a very nice 9-inning start, complete game shutout at Coors Field back on May 10th. So there is a little bit of quality, but obviously that's a super gettable Rockies team that doesn't necessarily comp with the Giants. Could be a spot where Kolek surprises a little bit, though. Out of the pitchers in the games where a team's showing a 4 and change projection against or more, Kolek's one of the more somewhat believable options. Not a big-time pitcher in any way, but that gets thin awfully fast on that board. The Twins at the Athletics. This is going to be an interesting one. Seeing a ton of offense in this game, obviously. We've got the wind blowing out in great hitting conditions, mid-80s temperatures, so should play up all the features of that minor league park in Sacramento that they're playing in. We've got Joe Ryan on the mound for the Twins. Ace-caliber pitcher, but a little bit homer-prone from time to time. He's managed it mostly effectively this season outside of a blip for 3 home runs against Atlanta at Atlanta back on April 20th. Otherwise, he's been very, very good. Just a home run here and there, a whole bunch of strikeouts, handful of earned runs. But over his last 6 outings, he's given up a total of 6 earned runs. 3 of those came in the same game against Cleveland. Every other start in there was either 1 or 0 earned runs. So he's been sharp. Definitely an interesting pitcher, but Oakland showing some power against. Probably a day where it's a 3 to 4 run day from Oakland, maybe out to 5, but doesn't completely ruin Ryan. And it just all rides on what's on base when that big batted ball event happens. Because I do think the A's get one on him. I don't think they get 3. I don't think they have a ton of guys on base when the 1 happens. So it's a little bit of a limiting factor, and Joe Ryan looks great. On the other side, it's Luis Severino going for the Athletics. A little bit more gettable, but hasn't been bad necessarily this year. Just kind of been mediocre as far as the strikeout stuff. Had 1 big blow up for 8 runs and then a couple 5-run games earlier in the season, but also has a lot of quality throughout the season and can pitch at a very high level. Going up against a Twins team that is good, not great. Little bit of downside for strikeouts. They got Matt Wallner back, so there's a lot of power there. And then guys like Byron Buxton, Carlos Correa, whatever you think of them. There are bats in that Twins lineup and a 5.35 implied total that leads the slate. So we're definitely getting to some Minnesota, but at least Severino is on the board. We'll talk about it. And then we round things out with the Mets at the Dodgers, which if you saw the early version of the stacks and the power index that I put up, I somehow accidentally left this game off of it entirely, which is a mistake because the Dodgers are pulling a 5.31 implied total and have just a few relevant bats. And the Mets at a 4.3, also few relevant bats on that team. It's Paul Blackburn for the Mets in his 2025 debut. He's been pitching in AAA, mostly effectively. Pitching deep into ball games, so fully stretched out, but obviously a disaster facing the Dodgers. And then Dustin May on the bump for Los Angeles. The depth is not great. You're typically getting 5 and change. He's only completed the 6th twice this year. Pitched into the 7th in one of those, but is good for 5 pretty solid innings. But the Mets, obviously a very stiff opponent. We're going to have to talk about Dustin May a little bit at least, but he'd probably be down a few pegs as far as the top tier pitchers. We'll do that right now. There you go. Down a few pegs from the top tier pitchers. How about that? It's almost like I know what I'm talking about. or at least how these projections are going to stack up. It's almost like I was the guy who filtered that column. Jack Flash at the top of the board. I think that's pretty obvious. 99,900 stands out as the highest projected pitcher at the best price among the three top-end pitchers on the board. Love the option for Jack Flash today. He's going to be crazy popular, though. I mean, let's be honest. It's going up against the White Sox at a discount. There's everything to like about that spot. It's in no way a spot where I'm worried about the hedge. Every now and then the White Sox can get a little bit frisky, but that is a low-end opponent for Jack Flaherty, and he is very good when he's on form. Ryan, as mentioned, 10-5, 10,000 is a little bit difficult to swallow price-wise, but it's him, Logan Webb, then Jack Flaherty as far as like talent, and Ryan and Webb, you could argue one way or the other. They're different kinds of pitchers, but they're both very, very good. So I have no issues in a vacuum paying those prices for Joe Ryan. I have no real issues paying it for Joe Ryan against Oakland in this ballpark and with Logan Webb facing San Diego. The wrinkle there just becomes Jack Flaherty against the White Sox. And how much of that do you want versus paying a lot more for Ryan or for Logan Webb against the Padres? Either Ryan or Webb could easily lead this slate. Either of those guys can pitch clean in those conditions, clean in those ballparks, in those matchups. Webb just needs to keep the ball on the ground like usual, find his strikeouts along the way. It is a low strikeout Padres opponent, so that works against him a little bit. He's not a premium strikeout pitcher, but he's got decent enough ability to miss bats. I'm on that spot for sure at 10-6, but as the highest price FanDuel pitcher offset by a couple of points, I'll probably just eat chalk and go with Jack Flaherty pretty most often. May at 9,000, 8,000. You can see the projection offset against a very, very good Mets lineup. He definitely is an upside pitcher. He's got very good stuff. He's found his strikeout form over the last 3, 9 strikeouts against the Guardians, 8 apiece against the Diamondbacks and the Angels. So definitely found the Ks along the way. Excellent horizontal movement in his arsenal. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he puts a score on for those prices. That 9,000 compared to these prices, not quite as generous as that 8,000 is compared to those prices. This is probably a very good combination if you're looking to double spend at pitcher rather than going like any two of those three guys. That's where May kind of works in. Kolek at 82-88 feels a little bit mispriced. It is a good pitching environment. That's a gettable enough Giants lineup. But I think I'd rather have Severino, even in the conditions, against a probably better, harder-hitting Twins team for $1,200 DraftKings discount. On FanDuel, where they're separated by $100, it's a lot less relevant. I think you can go to Kolek just as easily as Sevy, but I have Sevy projected a little bit higher. But that 7,000 on DraftKings is a bargain. That stands out pretty notably. Singer, 83.75 dice roll. Same thing with Tyler Anderson, lower end dice roll. Blackburn, I don't like targeting the Dodgers. There's enough to work with it. I don't think we need to do that. Every now and again, Paul Blackburn can break off a pretty decent start. If Emac shows up today, we'll talk to him about the Paul Blackburn of the day. But I don't think that guy is going to be Paul Blackburn today. Aaron Savali against the Reds, we're seeing a lot of offense there. He is another pitcher who, is a 3-4 type starter, perfectly effective major league starter. Saw an uptick going into last year, but disappointed throughout last season. It's shaky at best against a Reds lineup with enough talent in it in that ballpark with a heavy total. And then bottom of the board, Jonathan Cannon is a pretty hard no against Detroit, and Richard Fitz probably not going to give us any depth. Clint Woods here. What's going on, Clint Wood? Good to see you, buddy. Edward B. checking in from nice warm Burgo in North Carolina. Hope things are going well down there in Burgo. Edward, did you watch The White Lotus? And if so, what did you think of their North Carolina accents? I thought they were pretty on point, but that's just from hearing North Carolina accents. So from somebody on the ground, I'd be curious to hear what your take was. Obviously, they were doing a little bit exaggerated, I think. Oh, we got some lineups in. Let's see. The Red Sox was in there, but no confirmed lineups are up on the site yet. But I'll get them up there right after the show ends. Angels is in. Pop that in here. As I do this, make sure you guys are checking out rotoscouts.com For anybody who's new, only a handful of people here so far. More will be listening in later on. But check out rotoscouts.com. The goal of Rotoscouts, the entire reason the site exists, is to help keep money in your bankroll while you build your bankroll. I firmly believe that it is in no way appropriate to be charging people hundreds of dollars a month per sport to provide projections. Yeah, you get things and tools and access depending on where you're subscribing and how much you're giving them, but I'm trying my best to provide all the same projections at the highest possible levels for all the major sports. And I think I'm giving a lot of bang for your buck here for under $1 a day for all the major sports. No per sport fees. Anything that hits that website, if you're a subscriber, under $1 a day on a weekly, monthly, or quarterly plan, if it's on the website, you have access to it. Period. Full stop. Angels, Red Sox, Fenway Park. What are the conditions here? Hasn't been a crazy warm spring in the Northeast. The two games that Roth called out in his report over at RG were both fully green and just pointing out good hitting conditions. That was the White Sox and the Athletics game. As mentioned, the wind blowing out and warm in Sacramento, definitely appealing there. And then sounds like it's warm and sunny with wind blowing out in Chicago as well. What's going on in Boston today? Boston's been funky with the weather this year. Nice 69 degree and sunny day in Boston. Should be A-okay for hitting. There are definitely appealing bats on either side of this one. The bats are probably more appealing given the overall game totals on either side, the implied totals. The bats are more appealing for sure than the pitching. I don't think we're going to Richard Fitz, not at 66 on DraftKings. Even as an SP2, it's very, very thin. 8,000 on FanDuel is a hard no. If you play him, if you're a member of the Fitz family or is a long-lost pen pal or whatever, and you really are determined to play him, do so on DraftKings as your SP2. But it's not a spot where I expect much depth. As mentioned, just 3 innings in his most recent appearance. Had not pitched in the show since April 12th. Prior to that, went 5 innings, struck out 5 in that one. Wasn't really great for depth to begin with. So we're probably seeing 4.5. Maybe you get out to 5, but we're probably most likely seeing 4. I gave him a 4.5 to split the difference. Anderson's more usable on the other side. He's pitched to a 3.39 ERA this year, but you can see for yourself all the home runs that he's allowed. 4.23 is alarmingly over the line. He's a fly ball trajectory pitcher who does give up some barrels, but not an egregiously bad barrel rate. And what's interesting is those home runs have come on very little hard hit, very little exit velocity. So it's just a matter of when he makes that mistake, it's a big hanger and it gets tattooed. Otherwise, not terrible for premium contact. He doesn't really strike anybody out. That's kind of where you lose him in the wash as far as any kind of real reliable DFS quality. That and the obviously high walks, high whip. He's got a 5.18 xFIP that kind of reflects all the downside. The 3.39 ERA you can pretty safely ignore. If you go back in time, 3.81 ERA, but a 4.85 xFIP last year, 5.43 with a 5.52 the year before, consistently in the 17-18% strikeout range with 9 to 10% walks. None of that is good. He is capable of finding swinging strikes, though. The swinging strike rates the last few years don't exactly line up with his strikeout rate. That's because he doesn't throw enough strikes overall. That CSW will tell you that story. You can see he was better for managing home runs on very similar type contact here the last couple of seasons. So this probably is a small sample blip, but home runs can be wonky, as we know. So maybe he stays above 4 and gives up a few extra this year going throughout the season. He's a capable pitcher. It's not a high-end spot. We get Duran and Devers up at the top of the lineup and then a long string of righties. But some of those righties, as good as Ref Snyder can be against righties in 62 plate appearances overall this year, he's hit 4 home runs, 2 stolen bases, 302, 371, 585. The majority of that work has come against left-handed pitchers. So you can't really take it away, but you're talking about a 3-hitter now in this lineup and a key spot in your stack that projects just fine, projects for quality, but is a journeyman player if we're talking about the reality of the situation. There is not a season in which if you gave him 600 plate appearances, Rob Refsnyder is a 300, 371, 585 hitter with 25, 30 home runs. It's just not the case. 29% strikeouts to go with 9% walks. Ks are up, walks are about the same, and he's pushed walks up or strikeouts up each of the last 3 seasons. He's made great contact to start, but it's going to normalize back toward at best this, and this is in the cards. So the more plate appearances he sees, the more expectation for the numbers to dwindle. But against this lefty, it's entirely usable. It's entirely gettable. So there's a back and forth there, right? Refsnyder is good enough to beat Tyler Anderson. Tyler Anderson is good enough to beat Rob Refsnyder. And then it gets worse from there if I'm considering some of these bats. Carlos Narvaez is a righty, and he's had a great 166 plate appearances so far, but I'm not a big believer that he's a standout talent. 13.6% barrels, but only 43.6% hard hits. A good slash line, but just a 328 XWOB, but just a 172 ISO under the covers. Romy Gonzalez does put good bat on ball, always has. 9.8% barrels, 58.5% hard hits over just 58 plate appearances this year. But if you look back at last year, 8.3, 50.3, and a few more plate appearances along the way. 216 opportunities, hit 6 homers, stole 11 bags, 266, 306, 417, and can another righty who can get to lefties. Abraham Toro, not sure what his splits are like, honestly. He has made 10 plate appearances this year against left-handed pitching as a right-handed hitter. He has 3 singles and has struck out twice for his career. He is a lefty as reverse lefty. Here we go. 231, 296, 305 career hitter against left-handed pitching with a .075 ISO and a 75 WRC plus, a 269 WOBA, not XWOBA, WOBA. He has hit 3 of his 37 career home runs against left-handed pitching. So not an ideal spot for Abraham Toro. Trevor Story, I do think, is interesting, given how hard he hits the ball. He's striking out a lot at 30.9%. Even a guy like Tyler Anderson might find some success there. And he's only slashing 222, 268, 335. He's hit 7 home runs. He's stolen 9 bases, giving you a couple okay fantasy days along the way. And he's very, very cheap down toward the bottom of the lineup. That is still a right-handed bat that I respect enough that hits the ball very hard, where he'd probably be 3rd or 4th priority in a Red Sox stack, honestly. Still an interesting hitter. I wish he was hitting like cleanup where Carlos Narvaez is, or like 5th. Down lineup is problematic, but there are reasons for it given his struggles over 236 plate appearances. Ceddanne Rafaela, counting stats is really what you get out of him. He's been hitting the ball really hard this year, but hasn't really seen any results for it. 3 homers, 7 steals, just a 117 ISO. 329 XWOBA should suggest some normalization of the 239, 287, 356 slash line, the 76 WRC plus. But he was a fairly lower end player last year outside of just some home runs and just some steals. We might be looking at that kind of result again. And then Christian Campbell, after the ridiculously hot start, really has cooled off. Still 6.2% barrels, 43.8% hard hits, 28% strikeouts, and 11% walks. But we're down to 228, 313, 349. The kid really needs to get things figured out. But in the lineup today, because he's right-handed, we've got Marcelo Mayer not in the lineup. We've got Willie Abreu not in the lineup. Some lefties with some quality there. Maybe you get pinch hitting in this game, too, is a little bit of an added wrinkle. You know, they bring in a righty after 5 or so innings of Tyler Anderson being mediocre, and there's 6 runs on the board for the Red Sox. Then maybe we get some play in the Refsnyders and the Romy Gonzalez's and the Abraham Toros of the world around getting a Willier plate appearance or a Marcelo Mayer plate appearance. So a little bit to worry about there, but obviously the Red Sox at a 5.18 implied total. There's a lot to work with here as well. You've got 4 guys with multi-position eligibility across 3 positions on FanDuel. You've got just one multi-position guy, and that's Christian Campbell on DraftKings. You've also got a positional conflict between Romy Gonzalez and Abraham Toro at first base. I think it's pretty obvious from the numbers I was reading off that Romy Gonzalez would be your choice there. Unfortunately, he's more expensive, but Toro looks pretty inept against lefties throughout his career, so I think I would lean Romy in that situation. Duran and Devers, we don't really worry about the lefty-lefty of it. I'll pull up their numbers this year just to mention them, but not a concern that I have. I will eventually get to there. There we go. First lefties. Devers this year versus Sam-handed pitching, 325, 404, 494 with a 151 WRC plus, 3 home runs. He doesn't hit for as much power, 169 ISO, 24.5% strikeouts, 10.6% walks. Duran is at just 242, 266, 330 this season. No home runs in 94 plate appearances against Sam-handed pitching. 59 WRC plus, 261 weighted on base. So maybe we're a little bit more concerned about Duran than I was giving it credit for, just given this year's performance. But if I bolt last year on, where are we from last year? Still pretty weak. 251, 303, 341, a 78 WRC plus, 4 homers, 11 steals, and 324 plate appearances. 25.6% strikeouts, just a .09 ISO. Yeah, that's a little rough there. Honestly, what they really ought to do is move Russ Snyder into the leadoff role in this configuration against the lefty. If you're going to play him, put him in the top spot there. Move Duran down. Move Story up. I would have gone Russ Snyder, Devers, Romy, Story, Duran, Narvaez, and then Toro Rafael Campbell. I think that's a better configuration of this lineup. It's a little bit funky the way they put this together. That said, Jarren Duran against Tyler Anderson, there are lefties and there are lefties, so very gettable spot for Duran to succeed despite the lefty of it. 5,000, 3,600, you're not exactly paying ultra full price for him on a relatively cheap day. So I'm not worried about Duran. I think you play him, but would be more concerned about the handedness with him than with Devers. On the Angels side, definitely some appeal there. Thanks, Tiz. Let's see what else is going on. Angels drop. Yep, we got that one. 69. Russ Snyder versus a lefty in Fenway, as Tiz is saying, looking for the bomb. Yeah, again, it has been a good spot over the last couple seasons since they picked him up. Career journeyman, but has found a very, very specific role as a short side platoon bat for this team. Everybody saying they were close. I grew up on Long Island, so I'm an implant. Okay, been down there 30 years. My brothers all laugh saying I got a fucked up accent with that New York NNC mix. Nice. Well, I went in love with Dustin May, and I'm a lifelong Mets fan. I think that cross-country travel last night could lead to a huge strikeout game from May. Yeah, that's another wrinkle there. The Dodgers staying put in Los Angeles and just getting another New York team to play imported. Interesting schedule wrinkle there. But yeah, you see that from time to time. It's not something quantifiable. It's not something that really bakes into the projections outside of whatever Vegas might think of it. And if they put it into their algorithms, figuring out the game totals, it would be reflected through that more than anything else. But it is another just piece of wood on the fire if you're looking for reasons to consider May. Yeah, that could have an impact from time to time. So definitely another thought there. But getting into some Angels bats here against Richard Fitz, it's a gettable spot. Fitz has pitched to a 2.70 ERA in his 4 starts, his 20 innings, but a 4.40 xFIP. He has found an 11.6% swinging strike rate, but just a 25.3% CSW. Similar numbers to Anderson as far as the overall strikeouts. Fewer walks, but we'll see where that number goes. It's still a very small sample. He's given up right on the line for barrels, 10%, right on the line for hard hits at 40%. Exit velo, technically 7/10 below the threshold at 89.3, but still seems like a gettable profile for premium contact and power. 2.44% home runs allowed so far, substandard stuff via Stuff Plus, but not terrible. Peaked at 5 strikeouts. That was against the White Sox back on April 10th. This is in the work in the show. 4 strikeouts over 6 innings against Toronto and Texas, the 2 starts prior to that one. He did have 2 clean starts, the 5-inning game against the White Sox, 2 hits, no earned runs, and then the 3 innings against the Brewers in his return, no earned runs and 2 hits, only struck out 2 and walked 1. The first 2 games that he pitched, the ones against the Blue Jays and Rangers, 3 earned runs in both. So nothing terrible there, but again, very, very small sample here. Come on. He made 1 3-inning AA appearance warming up to that return. Went 3 at AA. So again, I really think we're looking at 4 and 4 and change. Probably doesn't complete the 5th kind of a situation here. Maybe at the outside you get the 5th, and that's where he would maybe loosely come into play on DraftKings as an SP2, but it's pretty low end. Zach Neto at the top of the Angels lineup is really appealing. 9 homers, 8 steals. The slash line is normalized already. We're at 273, 12, 503 over 170 plate appearances, but he's been mashing 15.5% barrels, 47.3% hard hits, steals bases, hits homers, gets on base to set the table for the guys below him. Very interesting player. Creating runs 27% better than average via WRC plus. Nolan Schanuel's just cheap as a guy who gets on base all the time. 372 on base currently, 114 WRC plus for a guy with just 3 homers, a stolen base. Very solid option. Doesn't strike out, draws a ton of walks. Exact same strikeout and walk ratio at 12.7%. That's a huge win for the walk side, and you can see that's an attribute that's sustained over the last since we've had him essentially in the show. What he's not as a power bat, what he's not as a premium contact guy, but as a table setter for the Taylor Ward, Jorge Soler, Mike Trout, Logan O'Hoppe, Joe Adell section of this lineup, and all of that monster power that lurks there. It's a perfect guy to have in that role. Ward costs just $43.34. He's significantly more expensive on the FanDuel slate than he is on DraftKings. Everybody on the Angels, with the exception of Zach Neto, is cheap on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it's much more realistic. Neto at 35, Ward at 34, Trout sanely at 36. 49 is a little bit cheap for Mike Trout. And then Soler at just 34 on DK. 3,000 on FanDuel makes him the cheapest out of that group. But 34 on DraftKings is obnoxiously cheap for Jorge Soler. It's kind of insulting to his history as a premier power bat. He's struggling this year for sure, so I can see how they arrived there. It's not one that I'm like completely arguing with, but I think it's still a bargain. 10.8% barrels this year, 38.8 on the hard hits, just 221, 293, 392, and more concerningly, just a 304 xWOBA. 8 home runs on the board, well behind the pace that you would expect from a power bat like him. But with Mike Trout hitting behind him now, with Logan O'Hoppe back there, with Joe Adell, there's a lot of threat behind him. He should be in a good spot to see enough good pitches to dramatically improve these numbers in a hurry. That's a guy that I would say, if you're looking for somebody who could easily be 1,000 more and change maybe 2-3 weeks from now, Soler's easily on that list. Ward has 16 home runs. I started talking about him and then jumped into the price thing. 16 homers, a monster 276 ISO at 338 xWOBA. That tells us some of the slash line at 217, 272, 493 should come up somewhat. But even if we're just buying him for premium contact, it looks like a good spot. 16.3% barrels, 46 plus on the hard hits. Mike Trout is Mike Trout. You just buy him at these prices. It's a no-brainer, 8.68 to lead the team in the home run model. He's hit 9 homers already in just 131 plate appearances. Everything else has been a little bit messy. 207, 282, 474 on the slash line, but a 376 xWOBA, just refining his timing after a stint on the IL, which is the unfortunate reality of being Mike Trout. Just never fully healthy, but whenever he is, you absolutely want him. Priority bat in the Angels lineup. Logan O'Hoppe, where you have to play catchers for just 42, is an absolute bargain. Given his power, his premium contact abilities, 18.6% barrels, 52.2% hard hits this year. Maybe it's a little exaggerated, but 12%, 46.3 last year, 15.6, 46.7 the year before. He's hit 14 home runs in just 188 plate appearances this season, a 247 ISO. Creating runs 21% better than average. And I can have him for essentially free. I mean, I know that's not free in a vacuum, but for those numbers, that's, it's a $1,000 discount for those numbers at a position you have to play on DraftKings. Aggressively good spot for Logan O'Hoppe. Joe Adell at just 3,000, 2,800. Yeah, he's slashing 208, 278, 390. He's hit 7 home runs in 169 plate appearances. 182 ISO is okay. It's not over 200. It's not where we would want it, but I feel like if we gave him full plate appearances, we'd probably find a 200 plus ISO. 342 xWOBA kind of helps justify that. He's cut strikeouts down by more than 2.5 points this year. 27.9 last year, down to 25.4. 6.5% walks. Needs to improve. He also needs to steal more bases like he was doing last season. but 11.7% barrels, 45.9% hard hits across his batted ball events for 3,000 for a kid who was one of the premier power bats all the way through the minor leagues on his way up. And this was always the book on Adell. He was going to hit for monster raw power and be problematic everywhere else. And that's exactly what he's doing. Anytime he's in the lineup, which is more often than not these days, at these prices, I love the upside. And people don't use them enough. I really honestly feel that. 6.42 in the home run model. He can be in my lineup if he's not in other people's. Luis Renifo's kind of problematic this season after a pretty decent year as like a utility, move him around the field guy in reality. And for our purposes, just a cheap multi-position asset who could give you a little bit of BABIP, who could give you a little bit of on-base skills and stolen bases and some run scoring to pad some stacks. He hasn't done much of any of that this year. 214, 249, 269. The 249 on base, the 299 xWOB is the most concerning thing there. Major fall off for this hitter. That said, he is just kind of a slap hitter anyway. So any given slate, you can still use a guy like that because you're not looking for that monster upside. It's not like, oh man, he needs his power back and the bat speed is down and the timing is off and he can't hit home runs anymore. He's just gotten kind of unlucky with his light contact so far this season. So that could easily change any given slate. And then Scott Kingery, one successful season after coming up through the Phillies organization as a top prospect years ago, is now, I think, into his 30s, if I remember correctly, or like 29 when we looked it up the other day. Probably a last chance kind of a stop for Kingery to catch on. 6 plate appearances so far, 200, 333, 400. Usable piece for 23 at shortstop on FanDuel, usable piece at 23 at second base on DraftKings. You already know before I say it, I prefer him at DraftKings because he plays second base. I was going to lean with Vegas there and just go Red Sox bats, but let me see where are these teams on the stacks board? I'm pretty sure the Red Sox are above the Angels on the stacks board too. They are, but not necessarily. I'm going to pull the stacks board in today. So rankings-wise, Red Sox just kind of mid-board, despite having the 4th highest Vegas total. And again, one of the teams that's over 5 runs, facing Tyler Anderson. I think that board kind of reflects the mid-quality of that lineup. There aren't a lot of guys who just in kind of a vacuum, fantasy-wise, project for monster numbers in there. There are guys who can find some success like Raf Snyder, but also stars like Duran who struggle. So kind of a mid-board spot, but I would go Red Sox bats, then Angels bats. You can see they're only 2 spots later, but not one of those attributes outweighs value, I guess, technically creeps up above where the Red Sox are. But it's very close between those two offenses in good hitting conditions in Fenway Park. And between the pitchers, maybe a smattering of Tyler Anderson shares across 150 lineups. But it's difficult to really justify in any earnest sense. And for me, it would be no Richard Fitz. But if you do it on DraftKings. That's how you end up skipping games, dummy. There we go. It's probably exactly what I did when I accidentally left. Actually, no, that's the last game. That was just me not clicking one more spot down and being like, well, guess I'm done with this. I noticed that and I was like, man, that's dumb. I hope not many people check the tool early. Brewers, Reds, hitting conditions for sure here. Big total in this game. Both teams above 4.5 runs. 2 gettable enough pitchers for my money. I think we like bats in this one as well. But these pitchers are probably slightly more usable than the pitchers from the last game. Singer pitching to just a 19.6% strikeout rate, 4.60 ERA with a 4.43 xFIP, not finding his swinging strikes, not throwing enough strikes, has allowed a ton of premium contact, which in this ballpark is likely to burn him. 10.7% barrels, 44.6% hard hits, 91.2 on the exit velo on a fly ball trajectory, just 2.8% home runs. I don't think so. That's a 4+ and approaching 5 kind of premium contact setup there. So this ballpark will eventually work against him for that, and you'll see that home run number skyrocket. Overall, he just hasn't been overly effective. But he is a capable enough guy who we've seen succeed over a handful of seasons now. Last time out, 7 innings against the Royals at Kansas City, 2 earned runs, 3 strikeouts and a walk. Pretty limited as far as the strikeouts go this season. He had a pair of 8 strikeout games over his first 5 starts of the year. And since the second 8 strikeout game has maxed out at just 4. couple short starts in there, a couple problematic run starts in there, a 7-run game against Houston at Houston over 2 1/3, 7 runs on 9 hits, struck out 1 walk, 1 home run allowed. Home run wise, he had no home runs in each of his last 2 starts and no home runs allowed in each of his first 2 starts. But out of the remaining 7 starts, he gave up exactly 1 home run in each of them all in a row in the middle there. Again, I do think this leads me more toward Brewers bats than anything. Singer last year pitched to a 22.3% strikeout rate, 3.71 ERA with a 3.62 xFIP. Year before, 18.9 strikeouts, but the year before that, 24.2. So you can see the bounce back. This is where I'm wrestling with how to properly situate this with like recommendation take-wise, because there is good in there, but there's also a lot of bad in there, and the ballpark works against him. I think he's usable, more so on DK at 75. FanDuel at 83, you're getting really thin. You do need him probably to book like a 7-inning start because he's probably given up some runs along the way. 7 innings, 6 strikeouts against the Brewers team that doesn't really strike out that much. I don't love it. It's usable. It wouldn't knock me out of my chair to see him succeed, but it's not great. Savali in just 3 starts this year, 6.0 ERA and a 5.44 xFIP. Again, kind of problematic to really make any strong recommendation here. 11.1% barrels have come on a 23.9 degree average launch allowed. He's got a hilariously high 8% home run rate. That obviously will normalize over time, or maybe it won't. That amounts to no home runs allowed in the last game. That was against Boston in Milwaukee. Faced 18 Red Sox, 1 earned run allowed, struck out 4 and walked 1. And he's increased the depth in each of his 3 starts. The first one, he only went 3. That's why the ERA is a little bit high. He also allowed 3 home runs. That's another reason the ERA is a little bit high. 3 homers, 5 earned runs in 3 innings. That was against the Yanks at Yankee Stadium. You can forgive that a little bit. 2 earned runs over 4 in the middle start. That was against the Pirates at Pittsburgh. You can't really forgive those. 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, and a home run allowed. So we're seeing incremental improvements for Savali in each of his outings so far. He wasn't good last year, but he wasn't completely tragic. It wasn't as bad as people remember outside of a few starts. 4.36 ERA ultimately with a 4.31 xFIP. That's almost an exact match. What we lost was the uptick in strikeout rate that we saw at the end of 2023, and we were kind of excited about in 2024. Just didn't materialize for him. 8.9% swinging strikes were down. Overall strikeout rate dipped from 23 down to 21.6. Still serviceable against a 7.5% walk, but nothing appealing. Not like this was getting more appealing. 23% against 6.5, and it spiked to like 28 in his last 9-10 starts back in 2023. I don't think that guy emerges really this year. It's probably more, if he finds any kind of form, it's going to be more like this. This is loosely usable on the right day, though. It's just this ballpark, a hard-hitting, interesting enough Reds lineup on the other side. I don't really want to recommend many Aaron Savali shares here either. If you play him, it's probably a DraftKings thing. The number of times, if you roll this 100 times, the number of times that Savali goes 6 and finds you that quality start bonus along the way, it's probably sub 10. It's pretty thin. That's a cheap price. It can make things work. And on a day where, pitching slate wise, either one of these could go pop against those lineups, particularly Joe Ryan against the Athletics in that ballpark. We'll get there. Still love the options. But if these two go bust, you need a miracle for Jack Flaherty. Not a miracle, but you know what I mean. It would be anti-odds to suggest that Flaherty could not succeed here. But you get a big price discount there. So Flaherty has to put up a pretty monster number at 99 at 9,000 to offset that $2,900, $3,000 price difference. So that's really what you're wrestling with. If you get a day where Flaherty goes 6 and change, but only happens to strike out 4 and gives up a couple runs along the way, then maybe we're a little bit more in play for, 5 and change okay innings out of Savali, where we're not really expecting a big strikeout total or him to limit runs all that much. But maybe that score for the money plays a little bit more. But it's really only a situation where like these guys from here down really only play. And you could throw Kolek into that list too because of his pricing. Those guys really only play if these guys fail. That's where you find that balance with the salaries there. So that's kind of how he's loosely on the board. It's certainly not the matchup, the environment, or really even the talent. Brewers bats, still no lineup as of moments ago, and that is still true. Bryce Turang in the top spot at 46.28, notably inexpensive on FanDuel. He's down to 274, 355, 358, but a 104 WRC plus, a very solid 352 xWOBA suggests that we should see a return, back in the upward trending direction. What's his last 30 days look like? Because he's come down somewhat there. Let's just do the month of May. Yeah, that was a problematic May. For the full month of May, he dramatically normalized 207, 324, 283, a 78 WRC plus, a 285 WOBA, 25% Ks. Did still walk 14.8% of the time, but the ISO dipped to 0.076. We're back to more being a BABIP-focused type hitter, so needs to keep that on base up or get it renormalized upward. Needs to find success. He did only have a 281 BABIP in that stretch. But I think we probably normalize back in that direction where we're looking at him as an on-base, stolen bases, run-scoring type option. The barrels, the hard hits are already starting to evaporate. But he's very playable. It's just that DraftKings price probably hasn't come down quite enough. FanDuel reacted to it correctly. Jackson Chourio at just 47.32. I'll tell you what, maybe a little bit expensive. 258, 285, 441, 99 WRC plus. Kid has superstar talent, but he's been a little bit vulnerable at the major league level. Not that those are terrible numbers, but he's not getting on base enough. The 293 xWOBA is downright concerning. The sub 200 ISO is a surprise for a kid who's, made his bones on the way up by hitting the ball extremely hard. 7.8% barrels, 44.6% hard hits last year as a rookie. Ended up delivering a 275, 327, 464 slash line. Just a 189 ISO. So actually we're not that far off of last year's ISO, but hit 21 home runs, stole 22 bases. We're maybe not off the pace for the counting stats either. 267 plate appearances, got 9 homers, 11 steals. Slash line, the xWOBA, some of the underlying stuff though. A little bit concerning. The walks being cut in half, 6.8 down to 3.4. Strikeouts are the same. It's not like he's, swinging out of his shoes. But for a year where, we were expecting maybe big things and steps forward for Chourio, he's kind of taken not a big step, but maybe a half step back. 32 on FanDuel, a little bit, it's similar pricing. Either way, he's very usable in this ballpark and wouldn't surprise me at all. I believe he's the pick of the day for a home run from the Brewers, not the overall home run pick. 7.21 in the models. Second on the team behind Rhys Hoskins. Christian Yelich at 44.34, very usable piece. 12 homers, 10 steals. 233, 317, 423 is kind of underwhelming, but I expect the average will climb and the on base should stay at worst around that territory. 321 xWOBA. 46.1% hard hits. Looks a whole lot like Christian Yelich in these departments. So definitely still a buyer. Strikeouts have been up. Walks have been down a little bit. That's what part of what's hurting his slash line overall. Those are things I expect him to be able to normalize as time goes on. William Contreras, monster day the other day on Saturday. Coming through with 19.6% strikeouts, 15% walks. That's a phenomenal ratio for the hitter. 5 home runs, 5 stolen bases, but 363 on base, a 106 WRC plus. What he hasn't done necessarily this year is sting the ball quite as much as he used to. 10% barrels, 49% hard hits last year. Similar numbers the year before. This year we're down to 5.1 and 40.1 with just a 323 xWOBA, but it's around the average. Maybe we've lost a little bit of the premium power, the premium pop from this player, but at 47, it's still a monster upside player to be able to put it catcher on DraftKings. And at first base on FanDuel is perfectly fine. I have no issues with using him standalone first base. No issues with using Rhys Hoskins standalone first base, and no issues on FanDuel with using them at first base and util. I think that's a fine combination to go to. Sal Frelick, mix and match quality player who hits for average, gets on base, table resetter in the middle of the lineup ahead of Rhys Hoskins mostly. Hoskins is the priority down there, 4,200, 3,000. Some rumblings of expectations for numbers to normalize, but for me, I'm kind of content. I do think the average comes down, and maybe that's what those people were talking about, the various tweets I've that are registered in my head but meaningless ultimately. I think maybe they're just thinking about that average being a little high, and I can buy into that, but he's always been a good 3 true outcomes player. So the walks, the on base, I expect to stay fairly high. Strikeouts maybe go up slightly. We've down from 28.8 last year to 25.7 so far this year. Maybe that pushes back up a little bit, and that's where your dip in average would come from. But the power is entirely real and always has been. If anything, he's behind an expected home run pace. He's hit 9 in 218 plate appearances on a 12.9% barrel, 44.7% hard hits. Last season, he hit 26 in 517 plate appearances, and while being a 214, 303, 419 hitter. So that's where the conversation about normalization is, but it's not about the power. It's not about what we're paying him to do out there. If he continues to hit for average and get on base at an aggressively high clip, then great, so much the better. But he doesn't need to. And look back here. 672 plate appearances before he missed all of 2023, 246, 332, 462 with a 216 ISO and 30 home runs, 122 WRC plus. That was his last year in Philly, I believe. So this, when I say I expect him to come down, but not as dramatically maybe as like what last year looked like in the slash, this is what I have in mind. 246, 332, 462. I think that's right about what we can expect. And 25 homers for the season. 8.18 today against a very gettable pitcher in a hitter-friendly bandbox of a park. Love the Rhys Hoskins play. 4,200. Too cheap. 3,000 on FanDuel. Isaac Collins, Caleb Durbin, Joey Ortiz, kind of mix and matchy guys down bottom. Nobody hitting better than 230. Nobody getting on base better than the 325. Nobody with better than a 308 xWOBA, and nobody with even a 100 ISO. Everybody significantly below average for run creation so far. Those are 3 any given slate dice rolls for cheap prices to just pad out a lineup. Between them, I guess you just go with the obvious, the guy who's seen the most success, that's Collins, but it's really ugly at the bottom of the Brewers lineup. Does cost them a little bit in terms of the ability to turn that lineup back over too, but as you just saw on Saturday, they can go off for monster 17 run type days in the right day. On the red side, TJ Friedl, finding success over 250 plate appearances this year. 300, 382, 419. Creating runs 21% better than average. Not a monster power back guy who needs to get on base, find some help from his friends to really provide DFS upside. But he's been doing that all season long. Doesn't hit the ball particularly hard, but doesn't strike out. Draws a ton of walks, 16.4 against 11.2. Last year is 15.2 against 7.6. The year before, 16.2 against 8.5. So he's found more walks. Maybe that evaporates a little and the on base comes down somewhat, but really like what he's been doing out there. My real bone to pick in this spot is a $4,800 price tag on DraftKings. That's just stupid. 3,000 on FanDuel is much more reasonable. Also, when it clicks in with everybody else being cheap, it just kind of works. 48 for TJ Friedl is obnoxiously high because he but he does not frequently create his own big scores. So that is aggressive. 35 for Gavin Lux, 26 for Gavin Lux is an interesting price. He comes in with just a 3.9% barrel, but we've seen him barrel more balls successfully. 41.7% hard hits is, right around last year's number. Striking out at 24%, but drawing 12.5% walks over 200 plate appearances, slashing 291, 380, 400. It's kind of like he's a less expensive version of what TJ Friedl's giving you at the top of the lineup. So maybe we just go to Gavin Lux and save some money for that table setter. I think that's the move on DK at 35. You can play them both on FanDuel. I would probably go Friedl in the outfield, Lux at second base if I was using that configuration. And there's correlated scoring upside there for sure. They lead directly into the power bats on this team. But it's probably better, given the quality and the nature of those two players, to have one or the other. Ellie is your priority, obviously. 12 homers, 17 steals, a 258, 331, 455 slash, a 350 xWOBA. Improving on the strikeouts. That was his big hiccup through the minor leagues. That was the thing that doubters were like, he's obviously got ridiculous raw talent, but that strikeout is concerning. And if he strikes out too much at the show, he's going to get exploited and he's not going to be the star people are expecting. 33.7 and a lot of success 2 years ago, 31.3 and a lot of success last year, and now down to 27.7 and showing a lot of success. I think Ellie's got it figured out. Not worried about the case. Monster improvement there while maintaining his high walk rate, 9.2%. Mashing baseballs. Barrels are up 14.8 from 12.7 last year. Hard hits are up 47.5 from 45.7 last year. Monster base stealer. Big home run bat. Had a emotional home run over the weekend. He lost his sister and decided to play, I think it was Sunday, and just rip one into the right field stands. And obviously meant a lot to him. But happy for him and a monster player. And you get him, honestly, we can do the average game. Right? That $6,000 price stands out. And the 48 obviously stands out. But let's say we start with Lux. And yeah, as Cubs points out, Lux only available in the outfield on DK. That was more of a FanDuel thing because I was looking over there with the multi-position. But yes, you would have to go outfield. If we're sacrificing Jake Fraley to that equation down lineup, it's perfectly fine. You can use them both. But given that at that price, I would probably just default to starting at Lux. And that's what I'm going to do for our average exercise here. So let's say we go Lux, Ellie. Just with those two as a two-man, I'm already getting Ellie for $47.50. Obviously, that's a big pay up on Gavin Lux, and it's the objectionable price that I was using there for TJ Friedel. But at least I get Ellie along for the ride. Here, you're just paying that in a vacuum for Friedel. That two-man average with Friedel and Ellie makes it a $5,400 buy. So you can see what that price average is. And then once we start stretching, so let's include the catcher. Now we're getting a $4,000 catcher with a lot of premium contact quality and some home run power. 96 plate appearances, he's hit 4 home runs, carrying a 202 ISO at 339 xWOBA, 16.7% barrels and 62.5% hard hits. And all of that is realistic. I mean, it's not going to stay probably that high, but 9.1, 43.9 last year for barrels and hard hits. The strikeouts aren't going to stay at 38.5. It was 22% last year, 26 the year before with a 9% walk rate. So figure it normalizes around 24, 25% Ks. That is a lot, but it's not aggressively bad. So now my 3-man, I'm at 45 apiece. Stretch to Spencer Steer at first base for 38. And then my next man in would be Will Benson. He's right there. So I get a direct line stack, a lot of direct correlation, and I'm paying $42.40 apiece. So $4,300 for a stack that does include Ellie. That gives me their other 4 top priority bats, in my opinion. So if you're building with Reds, it's very affordable. It's very easy to do. Whoops. They rank 5th by points on FanDuel, 4th by value, 5th by points on DraftKings, but 10th by value, a little bit spiked by that Friedel price, I think. And then some low projections against some of the lower price guys. That's kind of how that maths out. But given that power of that average, I do think they have more value than maybe that might reflect on DraftKings. They are downright cheaper on FanDuel, though. Let's say you go like Lux, Ellie, Stevenson is deprioritized there. You do get the double second base outfield set up there. Probably do like this. 3,000 on the nose. So I'm paying Will Benson's price for all of Lux, Ellie, Steer, and Benson. I don't mind that. That's an effective 4-man on FanDuel. Steer, medium quality contact, medium strikeouts, but last year was better on strikeout to walk. Same thing with the year before, so I would expect some improvement there. 214 plate appearances, been pretty mediocre. 221, 290, 328, just a 68 WRC plus, and a very difficult to trust 286 xWOBA. That's the concerning thing under the covers for Spencer Steer. Against some pretty weak contact so far, it's difficult to say that he's going to come really roaring back, but he would still be, given where he's hitting in this lineup and in this ballpark in these conditions, still be a priority bat among Reds. Not in the slate in general. Probably not the best way to fill first base on DraftKings. If I'm using him, it's probably more on FanDuel and it's probably more second base outfield. But obviously, I did just include him in that 5-man on DraftKings. He would be a part of that conversation. Will Benson has 5 home runs on the board. I think all 5 of them came in his first 10, 12 plate appearances of the season. 258, 314, 548. Has always been very capable of putting premium bat on ball, but has always been a problematic strikeout option as well. Not facing a major strikeout pitcher, but a guy who can find some strikeouts along the way. It's a back and forth kind of a spot. But you can see the barrels. I think the power and the ballpark kind of add up to win out together here. He's always hit well in this ballpark. 3,900, 3,000. He's affordably priced. He's a priority bat from the left side down lineup. Jose Trevino, moderate success over 119, but he's really not here to hit the ball. He's really here to play defense at catcher, and that's what he's exceptionally good at. He's never been a big strikeout bat, but he's more than doubled his walk rate year over year so far. I don't think that holds. The barrels are technically about double from last year, 3.2, but they're similar to the year before, 6%. Not a big home run hitter, but he has managed to hit. I'm sorry. I was looking at the, my eye skipped down. I was looking at Fraley. 5.1, 5.3. So consistent barrels and hard hits up a little bit from Trevino. My eye skipped down to Jake Fraley's line as I was doing that. Point being, the 3 home runs, every now and then he'll pop one, but he's not going to crack 10 for the season. I'm willing to put something behind that. 41.25 for Jake Fraley, 5.10 in the home run model. He does have the 6% barrel rate. He has hit 4 home runs in 99 plate appearances. Pretty thin around the edges at 200, 313, 376. At 315 XWOP was not that appealing. Hasn't done a lot. Last year, 277, 330, 386 was better for on base, some stolen bases and correlated scoring. But from down here in the 8th spot, I'd almost rather have him hitting 9th, honestly. At least then you could wrap him around a little bit more effectively. Don't love the option, 41.25. He's fine. He's playable, but he's not a priority in this lineup. And then Garrett Hampson is a mix and match infielder at best. This goes. Brewers bats, immediately followed by Reds bats. And you can see value on both. Value on DK showing for the Brewers. And again, on that's just skewed by that one price and then some low overall projections. I do think there's more value than that ranking in them on DraftKings. And they're the 5th ranked home run mark, 5th by Vegas, 6th by Vegas for Milwaukee. So those two teams right next to each other, kind of in the middle of the board, leaning offense in this one. And then between the two pitchers, I would go Singer over Savali. White Sox lineup is in. Tigers lineup is not. The White Sox, mostly targets for Jack Flash today. If you're just looking for contrarianism for contrarian lineups for the sake of contrarianism, then sure, fire away with the White Sox. That's going to be the answer to that question basically every single day. And you're going to mostly fail because they are not a good team. Chase Meadroth would be a priority. 144 pretty good plate appearances, 281, 361, 336. Not a premium bat as far as generating his own production outside of getting to first base, though. Doesn't strike out, draws a ton of walks, 11.8 and 11.1 in those two categories. 105 WRC plus, has been an effective major leaguer and should continue to be. But he's a light hitting, get on base, need help from his friends type option. And he doesn't have a lot of friends to work with on this team. Mike Tauchman hits the ball a little bit harder, but he's ultimately here also just to get to first base. Over 52 plate appearances, has been tremendous at that. 372, 481, 651 so far. He's also hit a pair of home runs. You do have more barrels on deck with Tauchman. He's capable of turning on the ball from the left side, but he's facing Jack Flaherty today. Not ideal. Last year, over 350, he hit just 7 home runs. That's who Mike Tauchman is. But he got on in a 357 clip. He created runs 11% better than average. Year before, he had 8 home runs over 400 plate appearances, but got on at a 363 clip. Created runs 7% better than average. He's a journeyman type guy, but he's a good option for what he does. So if I'm building stacks, those are probably the top 2 priorities in my 3-man. But then my third priority rather is still, despite his struggles this year, Lubob. And he's all the way down here. I get that Miguel Vargas has technically been a little bit better than him this year, but not by much. And we know for sure that he's not good and that he's not a top of the lineup hitter. And we know for sure that despite this ugliness, and honestly last year's pretty bad season, this is a much better all-star caliber type player. He just doesn't want to be here. He's miserable right now, and it's showing. But it makes it difficult to stack this team outside of anything. You get these top two and then a monster gap down to Robert. Obviously, you can get quality out of Vargas from here and there. He plays first and third. It's not where I want him. On FanDuel in the outfield, maybe for $3,000. What you do get is at least a very cheap price, $3,300 for a guy carrying a 10% barrel, 41.7% hard hit, 8 home runs, but just a 188 ISO. A 328 XWOB, but this suggests that, this is about the best we're going to get out of him. Andrew Benintendi, 135 plate appearances. He's hit 6 home runs. He hit 20 last year while slashing 229, 289, 396. He hit 5 the year before in 621 plate appearances, but had a better slash line. That's the true nature of Andrew Benintendi. While he's selling out to try and hit for power, he's just not all that good. So you get the oddball days where maybe he goes deep. If you're homer hunting mid-board, 4.51 against a very high-end pitcher. If you're looking for blips for Jack Flaherty, it would be around some premium contact, some power. So if I have to, he's probably my third man in if I'm building a 3-man with Meadroth, Tauchman, and then Benintendi to get a little bit of lefty power, heavy air quotes there. But I'm not at all a believer. Lenyn Sosa makes interesting contact for just $2,700 when I can stick him at second base. Maybe that's the way to go. Maybe you go Meadroth at short, Sosa at second, 35-27 here. You can grab Tauchman in the outfield as your third man. And then if I'm stretching to 5, that makes 7 a little bit more in reach. And now I can get to a bad 5-man from the White Sox against a high-end pitcher. In which case, man, these aren't good options. I would probably fill out my third outfield spot and just take Benny there at 31, much as I don't like the hitter. I think that's probably the approach. It's a 33.40, so $3,400 5-man average. But it's just not a good team against a pitcher with a 29.9% strikeout rate. There are some low strikeouts up top, but there are plenty of exploitable strikeout rates through there. Flaherty walking just 7.9%, 3.94 ERA, but a sparkling 3.290 xFIP underneath it. 12% swinging, 30.1% CSW. All that's in line. A lot of barrels allowed. That's over our threshold. 42.6, way over the threshold. 90.4, also over the threshold. That's why he's at a 4.56% home run rate. At least he's honest about that contact. Last year, it was 3.70 on much lighter contact. Year before, 2.62 on similarly light contact. It's a couple blips in 11 starts. I expect this normalizes back downward, probably gets to sub 10%. Barrels sub 40 here, 89-ish there, and sub 4. But he's always going to have a little bit of blip for home runs. On the days where those come with a bunch of guys on base, obviously we get a lot of downside out of Flaherty on the wrong day. That could happen to anybody. Overall, 6 innings last time out. Shut out the Giants, gave up 2 hits, 21 hitters, struck out 8. Start before that, 3 earned runs allowed on a home run. Or with a home run allowed. That was against Cleveland. Went 6 2/3, struck out 8 in that one as well. In 3 of his last 5 starts, he struck out 8 hitters. In 4 of his last 7 starts, he struck out 8 or more with a 9 strikeout game piled into that. And if you go back 2 more starts, he had another 9 strikeout game against the Yanks. There are a lot of Ks on deck for Jack Flash. He's only 9,000 on DraftKings. He's 99 on FanDuel. That is the top priority pitcher of the day. Everybody in the world knows that because he's facing the White Sox. But I think you just eat the chalk as much as possible and go with some Jack Flaherty here. It's a very, very good spot. Jonathan Cannon at 68.75. 17% strikeouts against 6% walks, a 4.15 ERA and a 4.64 xFIP. Not terrible for home run results, but giving up over the line in hard hits. Close enough to the line in barrels. Close enough, 1/10 of a point below the threshold for problems in exit velo. He was similar last year. Gave up a similar 3.45% home run rate. He's not tragic, but he's not good. He's a pitcher who, if he's your 5th starter, you're not happy about it, but you can go into a season with him and then look to upgrade that spot kind of a guy. For the White Sox, he's one of their better options. Last time out, 5 2/3 of 5-run ball, 9 hits against the Mets in Queens, 4 strikeouts and a walk, 2 home runs allowed, 3 earned runs over 5 to the Cubbies. It's another very good team, obviously. 3 strikeouts, no walks. Had a decent day at Cincinnati on a day where I'm sure we would have been targeting Reds bats. 6 innings, no earned runs on 4 hits, struck out 6, walked 0, but there are some aggressive free swingers in that lineup. Peaked at 6 strikeouts for the season, couple 5 strikeout games, couple 4 strikeout games, but very, very low end against an aggressively good Tigers team. What this team can give you with the right pitcher against is some strikeouts. 25% strikeouts for this projected version of the Tigers lineup, 25% for the same collection of hitters last year. It's a real number, but it's not one that's overly likely to be exploited by Jonathan Cannon outside of like a 5 strikeout type day. And there's just so much available contact. And there's enough premium contact, and there's enough coming through in the home run model, and there's enough coming through with Detroit as the 3rd-ranked team of the day on FanDuel, the 2nd-ranked on DraftKings, showing 2nd and 4th-ranked value, 3rd highest Vegas implied total, and 4th highest home run rating collectively for the team. I think there's a lot to work with in Detroit. Kerry Carpenter, one of the top priority bats in this lineup, one of the major home run threats in this lineup, 10 on the season, 202 ISO. Monster start to his year, over 210 plate appearances, 12.5% barrels, 47.2% hard hits, and now neither site has him expensive. Still just 42 on DraftKings. I think that's the price I was yelling and screaming about the other day. 29 on FanDuel. I will absolutely buy that. Gleyber Torres, 45.34, one of their more expensive bats. Paying it off, though, 269, 383, 407, getting on base a lot, hitting the ball fairly hard with a 12% barrel. The hard hits needs to come up overall, but he's not striking out at all. 11.4% Ks, 14.4% walks is dynamite. That is what you want Gleyber Torres to be doing because everything else comes along for the ride when he's doing those two things. 412 xwOBA tells me that some of these numbers will go up. Colt Keith is just 3,200. We talked about this the other day. 8.5% barrels, up from his bad start last year over where he was at just 5.6. 38.5% hard hits. It's not great in a vacuum, but it's up several points from last year. Strikeouts are slightly up, but walks have almost doubled. That's definitely interesting. From a kid who was a premium bat coming up through the system, who, despite some flaws and some obvious ones that I just mentioned last year in his rookie season, still managed to go 260, 309, 380. The slug is obviously weak. He had 13 home runs. 120 ISO is not where you wanted him. And this is a kid we expected more power from. But that's not a lost season by any stretch. 3% below average by WRC plus from a rookie. That's not bad. You get him at first base and second base. I want him at second on either side. 3,000 on DraftKings, 25 on FanDuel. Just to make things work, he's in play. Obviously, there's a back and forth between him and Gleyber there, but it's that same conversation. If you can save $1,500, it's at least worth doing sometimes, and you get the ability to play them both together if you want to. If you do that, though, you're sacrificing Torkelson. So in my money-saving configuration, I would go there. I would go Colt Keith at second. Obvious priority. And then you're picking your guy. You can't have Gleyber. You can have anybody else. I would probably take Dylan Dingler and just fill catcher on DraftKings. And that brings me to 4,040 apiece, so 41 apiece to face Jonathan Cannon with 3 monster power bats, Kerry Carpenter, Riley Green, and Spencer Torkelson. And then all their direct correlation. Filling catcher. Yeah. That's appealing. That's cheap. Good spot for Tigers. Riley Green at 48.33. Not expensive enough on FanDuel. They got to catch up over there. Honestly, should be in the 5,000s on DraftKings too. Both sides, a couple $100 light. 18.1% barrels, 48.3% hard hits, 13 homers, 271, 325, 502 with 231 ISO. Creating runs 34% better than average to lead the team outside of that 15 plate appearances from Wenzel. What's not to like about Riley? Torque at 14.3% barrels for just 4,400 at first base. He has an 11.63 that leads the team and one of the highest marks on the slate for home run upside. He's hit 14 this year. He's carrying a 275 ISO, a 379 xwOBA. Torkelson back, fully back. Might never hit for good average in the show, but who cares? It's all about the power. Wenzel loosely playable. Good spot in the lineup for the switch hitter. He's only 23 on FanDuel. He's 31 on DraftKings. Decent start to his season, over 15 plate appearances. Last year, he gave us 9 homers, 9 steals in 425 while slashing 242, 300, 383. I would expect something around that territory if you play him, but playable. Dingler has hit the ball very hard this year, 8.7% barrels, 45.2% hard hits, 5 homers, over 164 plate appearances. Pretty good pace from a cheap catcher. 299, 329, 459, even better. That's a pretty good slash line. 348 xWOBA, but tells us it's pretty real. 125 WRC plus, sustainable on a very aggressively good offense. Trey Sweeney has given us mix and match quality so far, but I suspect there's more than that in the long term. It's just we don't really have anything to justify shares with right now outside of just cheap shortstop from this team. But if I'm already cheap, then I want to pay a pretty high-end shortstop if one's available. So he's one that falls by the wayside a little bit. And then Javi Baez already starting to normalize. We're at 273, 306, 442 after that great start that was a big story for a minute. 293 xWOBA tells us we're going to continue to slide. He's playable, but only loosely. 4,000 is probably still too high on DraftKings. 27 on FanDuel. It's playable, but it's not great. Tie between Flaherty and the Tigers bats. I'll go Flaherty just to put a ranking on it. Flaherty, then the Tigers bats, and really nothing from the White Sox for me. No lineups yet from here out. Oh, thanks, Tiz. Tiz mentioning that Parker Meadows just got activated. See if he's what are the reports? I sent down Justin Henry, DFA'd Ryan Cusick. I was like, why am I not seeing any of the Tigers? Interesting. So assuming he's active, did they update a projected here? Oh, they did. Let me grab the new projected from, that's the easiest way to do it. I was going to say, assuming he's active, he probably hits 1-2 here and Carpenter drops down lineup a little bit. And this is the projected here. You guys don't see this tab as often. This is the projected lineups tab. Righties, lefties, even though this is on the left and that's on the right because I wasn't thinking that way when I built this. But these are all the projected lineups. They just live here. I do update them every day from the labs projected ones. But just to put Meadows on the board. So this version has Carpenter sliding to 2, Glaber 3, Riley Green, Colt Keith, Torque. That is a monster stretch of talent. This team is good. Meadows, no numbers from this year. This would be his season debut. Last season, 9 homers, 9 steals in 298 plate appearances, 244, 310, 433. Year before, just 145 plate appearances. Similar kind of impact, though. 3 homers, 8 steals in that small sample. Respectable enough slash line, especially considering the on base, but was it just 99 WRC plus, 111 WRC plus last year in the small sample? Kid with some talent. In 237 AAA plate appearances last year, he was up and down last year. 8 homers, 19 stolen bases to add to the 9 and 9. So a very effective season. 292, 388, 495, a 203 ISO, 134 WRC plus. Year before, in 517 AAA plate appearances as just a 23-year-old, 19 homers, 19 steals. Prior to that, 2022, high A and double A, 556 plate appearances, 20 homers, 17 stolen bases, 204 ISO, 124 WRC plus. So definitely another high-end bat with power, with speed from the left side to throw at Jonathan Cannon here. Love that he's back in the lineup. That had slipped past me. Thank you for the note. Definitely important to note that. RC player sounds like a Tigers fan. Meadows being back is huge for us. Our best defender and leadoff hitter. Yeah, that's awesome. It'll be interesting to see where Carp drops. I would love it if he's hitting second. That's the perfect spot for his power upside and for that bat. But they might move him down a little bit. You could see a Meadows, Riley Green 1-2. You could see them leave Glaber in the 2 spot and go lefty righty up there. It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out confirmed wise, but great bat to add onto the equation here. So with that, I'm going to flip it. I'm going to say Tigers bats, then Jack Flaherty, but really it's a tie, and Flaherty is the top projected pitcher of the day. Padres and Giants. Stephen Kolek is unfortunately priced. If he was $700 less on DraftKings, like $1,000 less on FanDuel, we'd at least be dealing with something maybe potentially sneaky interesting. I just don't want to pay those prices for a guy with like a low mid type projection, an 18.6% strikeout rate, just a 7.2% swinging, 23.9 CSW. 4.11 ERA and a 3.84 xFIP is nice over a small sample. 5.3% walks on just a 5.3% barrels, but just a 6.9 degree average launch means I don't care that much about the 53.2% hard hits, 93 miles an hour of exit velo. I do care about those numbers, even if he is truly a low trajectory pitcher. If you hit the ball that hard, it's getting through the infield a lot of the time. So that does stack up against him a little bit. Typically, we're talking about, I don't care that that's at 45 and 90. That's another pile again on top, but it's also still small sample. So it probably works out for him. 2.3% home runs, I believe, is somewhat realistic. But just bouncing off those prices, it doesn't really work that well. Good enough Giants lineup. There are strikeout targets here, 22.6 this year, 22.2 last year for this projected lineup. But there's a lot of power. There's a lot of guys who can hit the ball very hard. It's just going to come down to the trajectory and whether or not he makes a mistake or two along the way. And it seems like he's at least capable of making those mistakes. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the 9-inning complete game shutout at Coors Field is at least intriguing for the depth that it shows. He's gone into the 6th inning, in addition to that start, in 3 of his 4 other starts. Completed the 6th only once. Gave up 3 earned on 7 hits, 4 total runs, 6 strikeouts, 3 walks. That was against the Blue Jays in Toronto. Last time out, faced the Marlins in a really disappointing spot. I think we're on him for cheaper in this one. 5 1/3, 6 earned runs, 3 strikeouts, 2 walks. That didn't go well at all. That was against the Marlins. Giants are a lot better than the Marlins. But the idea of depth puts a little bit at 82 maybe onto it. But again, that's not really a viable SP2 price. He's not good enough and not enough upside to be a true SP1 here for us. So kind of just falls off the side of the slate, I think. He's probably going to be low owned. I'll give him that much, but for a pretty good reason. Logan Webb against the Pods, even against the Pods, I should say, is still a top priority pitcher. 27.9% strikeouts against a 5.6% walk is fantastic. Last year, it was just 20.5% strikeouts. The year before, 22.8%, but the walks have always been very, very low, and he is truly excellent at keeping the ball down. 4.4 degree average launch this year, 2.5 last year, 0.6 the year before, sub 1.5% home run rate over 204 and 2/3 last year, 235 and 216 innings the year before that. This year, 1.33 and 73 and a third. What I love about Logan Webb on top of all of those positive attributes is just the rubber arm. He is depth personified. 6 innings last time out, 10 strikeouts against the Tigers, 3 earned runs, gave up a homer, uncharacteristic home run allowed. Probably would have been a better outing. Had a bumpy one against the Royals. 3 earned runs, 6 runs total on 10 hits, 5 strikeouts, no walks, gave up a homer in that one as well. Came out after just 4. 3 starts in a row prior to that, 8 innings, and then 2 7-inning starts. Struck out 9 against the Twins, 6 against the Rockies, just 4 against the A's, but gave up a total of 4 earned runs in those 3 starts and those 22 innings. Pretty good stretch. Has pitched into or beyond the 7th inning 5 times this year, 6 times this year, with another 2 starts of 6 innings exactly. One of the better targets for just innings pitched. And if you're getting through innings, you're accruing fantasy points. There's something to like about Logan Webb at 97. 10-6 on FanDuel, you're paying a little bit of tax there, but he's very, very good. And even against a low strikeout squad like the Padres, I almost said Pirates twice. First time, all right, fine. Second time? The hell was that? Even against a low strikeout team like San Diego, there is upside for Logan Webb. But you can see the downside. 19.5% Ks this year, 16.6 for the same collection of hitters last year. Some very realistically low strikeout guys, but it's not quite as good as the average looks like because some of that is represented by a 2.3% strikeout rate, which is ludicrous for Luis Arias. 4.5% walks. He just puts everything in play. 289, 321, 417. Not really where we're accustomed to see him. He's faced a little bit of a challenge with BABIP so far. But a very, very good table setter. I continue to think he should be leading off, not hitting second behind Tatis. That should be the other way around. But so far, they're kind of justifying having it this way, considering Tatis has gotten on a little bit more. He's got the obvious power, and we're just buying him extra plate appearances. So I get it. 5.91 in the home run model, even against Logan Webb, but he's the only guy over even halfway to the magic number. Manny Machado just at 4.59. Problematic day for seeing a lot of offense from the Pods, and that's kind of backed up by a 3.29 implied total against one of the primo pitchers in baseball for run suppression in a run-suppressing ballpark. If you're going Pods, those three hitters at the top that I just named are definitely still priorities. I would include Luis Arias. Since you have no other alternative at first base, it's not in the grand sense of the slate an ideal way to fill first base on DraftKings. But if you're just considering it from this team, then it's fine. And he's cheap, 4,000. The table setter for the next few guys that you want to get to. So it works. Honestly, or obviously, though, I prefer him at second base for 27 on FanDuel. It's interesting whether he would make my 4-man on FanDuel, though, because I can get a very cheap Xander Bogaerts, who I still have belief in, maybe misguided belief. But I could still get that down here in those three in a run and have that. And that's 34.25 a piece, 13.7 total. Versus if I just straight line it, 33.75 a piece, 13.5 total. So essentially no difference. I think I would take Bogey in that equation. But if I'm building more than one Padres stack, there is some back and forth there. Would I be looking to avoid, and the reason I would consider Bogaerts would be, if they do get to Logan Webb today, I want the guy who's a bigger part of that equation, or a bigger probable part of that equation, in terms of he does have more power. He does have more extra base hit upside than Luis Arias. Arias would be a part of that equation just with his ability to reach first base 3 times and then get driven in. But I want the bat that's creating the RBI, not the run scorer in that equation. Machado would be a priority. 308, 373, 488 in a great return to form. A 406 xWOBA, but that tells us there is room for improvement even on those numbers, or at worst, they're realistic. I think the improvement comes in power, as I've been saying. He's still only at 7 home runs across 236 plate appearances. Doesn't reflect the quality of contact he's made. 12.5% barrels, 53.4% hard hits while striking out at just 16.5, down from 19.3 last year, pushing walks back up to 9.7 from 7% last year. Improved upon the 2023 numbers. Great stretch for Machado. Definitely a priority. Jackson Merrill at 51.35, slashing 331, 373, 532 with a 202 ISO. Tremendous option. Obviously a priority. He's one of the best players on their team. Bogey is where we get concerning, and then it falls off pretty hard down lineup for these guys. That's where the Pods are flawed, and that's where they've been flawed for the past couple seasons. You can get quality days out of Cronenworth. You can get quality days out of Bogey, but both guys currently at 240. Cronenworth's gotten on base a lot more often and at 376 in his 126 plate appearances. We'll see where that goes in the long term. Bogey, respectable enough at 329 over 225 opportunities while stealing some bases, 11 stolen bases to pad the fantasy scoring a little bit. What I think is interesting is that hard hits are up. We're almost at 40%. That's after being mired at 34.4 2 years ago, 33 last year. It's on fewer barrels so far, but he's at least found a little bit more success in that department. It tells me that wrist is healing, if not healed. Still just amounts to a .093 ISO, just 3 home runs, but at least he's tagging the ball a little bit more. That's kind of where I come down with that difference between him and Arias as far as the quality of contact. Arias makes far more frequent contact, but Bogey's also low strikeout. Not as low, obviously. But again, that's where kind of the collision is. You're getting a lot lower end contact in that than you are in this. Cronenworth also not striking out, drawing a ton of walks. That's somewhat representative of who he is. The strikeouts are about right. The walks are essentially doubled from the last 2 seasons. Those will come down, and that's why I think that the on-base normalizes to like where Bogey is right now. So between the two, with Cronenworth coming in at a higher price on both sites, I would probably lean toward Bogaerts between those two as well. Maybe I'm just a Xander Bogaerts fan. Luis Campusano can hit the ball effectively. 40.6% hard hits with a 7.7% barrel 2 years ago. I forget what that sample was, 200 or so. Yeah, 174 plate appearances. He was actually really good. 319, 356, 491. Created runs 34% better than average with 7 home runs over that stretch. It's a really good tear. In more plate appearances, he normalized quickly last year. Only found 1 more home run in more than 100 more plate appearances. 227, 281, 361. Truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Can't really discount him for a 0 across 19 plate appearances so far. 38 WRC plus. Has at least hit the ball hard in his batted ball events across that stretch. And then Tyler Wade, not much of a hitter at all at the major league level. Just never really found it. He was a kid who was supposed to be an interesting hit tool focused utility guy with some speed, and just the utility guy part worked out, but never the bat. And then Elias Diaz, if you get the dual catcher configuration here, mix and match quality, probably lower end than Campusano. The Giants bats, definitely the priority if you're looking for hitting from this game. Yelich is apparently in the Brewers lineup. Oh, we had that, I think. No, we didn't because it's different. Brewers with Jake Bauers in the 8 spot get a little bit more interesting. Just looking at that real quick. If this is your first time, welcome to the jump all over the place nature of this show. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. This is the confirmed version of the Brewers lineup. The reason I wanted to bring it up is because of Jake Bauers here. He's he's 4,000 on DraftKings. That's not, in a vacuum expensive, but it's a little bit more than I'd like to pay, especially when he's at 24 on FanDuel. But the reason he's interesting is the 9.3 that he carries in the home run model. Double-digit barrels and a lot of hard hits last year. Similar the year before in a small sample. What was that? 2023 sample. 272 plate appearances. Not that tiny a sample. He had a dozen home runs, but obviously was terrible around the edges. Last year, he was interesting in 346 plate appearances. Sub Mendoza, but hit a dozen home runs and stole 13 bags. This year, in 93 plate appearances, 4 homers, 4 steals, 263, 366, 475, a 213 ISO, a 350 xWOBA, a 134 WRC plus. Been downright good so far this year. That's with 34.4% strikeouts. He's drawing a 14% walk rate. The walks are up. The strikeouts are exactly where they've been the last couple seasons. Jake Bauers is very flawed. He's very likely to put a 0 into your lineup, but that adds an interesting down lineup bat to this team that not everybody will use. And at 2,400, first base or the outfield, perfectly fine. It sucks that he's not like 37 or 35. Save me a couple bucks on DraftKings, but 4,000 is a discount for the power upside with a little bit of stolen base, correlated scoring upside. As a wraparound guy, I think you're getting enough justification via the walks and the on base right now to consider him in that regard. So like 4,000 there. Sucks that he's outfield too though, but I guess I go triple outfield. So 1, 2, 3. And then obviously I would want Contreras. It's going to be expensive. And then Reese at first base and forgo the Bryce Turang option. And we're at 4,400 a man. That's pretty reasonable for Jackson Trujillo, William Contreras, Christian Yelich, Reese Hoskins, and Jake Bauers against Brady Singer in the Reds ballpark. Kind of works. On FanDuel, that gets aggressively cheaper. I would probably go. Boy, that's a toss up here to here in this configuration because I want both Trujillo and Yelich. You're stretching for Bauers at that point. I would probably go Reese to gain a little connectivity there and save $200. Either way, though, Reese and Contreras, primo bats, and I'm at 3,000 a man for my 4-man on FanDuel with Trujillo, Yelich, Reese, and Bauers. I like that. Very playable. You're leaving out one of their best bats. I don't love that you have to skip Contreras, but we only get 4 bites at the apple on FanDuel. But that makes the Brewers more interesting. And another lefty to throw at Brady Singer. Where were we? We were on Giants bats, yeah? Elliot Ramos continues to mash in the leadoff spot, 295, 360, 491. Kid's just good. 10 homers, 5 steals, monster premium contact, 12.8% barrels, 45% hard hits, creating runs 38% better than average. As a rookie last year, 518 plate appearances, he hit 22 home runs, he stole 6 bags, had a 200 ISO, created runs 20% better than average. Kind of quiet. Was noisy at the plate, but did so without a bunch of fanfare. Definitely an interesting option. 45, 36 is getting expensive, but he's viable against Stephen Kolek. Definitely viable. Young-Hoo Lee at 44, 31, slashing 277, 325, 438. A little bit of cooling off going on. 6 homers, 5 steals. Still a 338 xwOBA, but not a premium contact option. More of a put the ball in play, reach first base, find some correlated scoring along the way type guy, but doesn't strike out. 11.5% this year against 6.2% walks. Last year, 8.2 against 6.3, and does demonstrably hit the ball harder than the Luis Arraezes of the world. He's more a Steven Kwan type. So there's a little tiny bit of pop there with the ability to hit for average, get on base, and provide correlation with Wilmer Flores and his power surge. 10 home runs that he's already hit. So 43, 32. I don't love paying a tax on Wilmer Flores for the 10 home runs that already happened, but any given slate, he's there. He's fine. You can see that they came on 5.9% barrels and 24.3% hard hits that are almost identical to last year, down from 2 years ago. Last year with the exact same contact in, a handful of 13 more plate appearances, he hit 6 fewer home runs. So again, we are paying a tax very clearly for home runs that Wilmer already hit this year. But he does have pop in that bat. We've seen it over time. He is low strikeout. He can do some other things. He doesn't get on base like crazy, but he can hit you a double. He can drive some guys in. So he's playable, but I think Matt Chapman's a much bigger priority. I think Willy Adames is a bigger priority. Even with Willie's struggles at 208, 290, 327, and half the home runs that Wilmer has hit in more plate appearances, I'm buying the barrels. I'm buying the hard hits, and I'm buying the career history that I know is very real with Willy Adames. It's just been a bad start. Still only 256 plate appearances. Give him another 400 on top of this, and let's see where we are before we completely write off Willy Adames. Matt Chapman's just good. Love the swing. 10 home runs. 235, 358, 426 works for me. 191 ISO is a little bit low for him for the contact that he makes. A little bit of luck factor involved in that. I expect typically a 200 plus ISO out of Matty Chapman, and he's carrying a 374 xwOBA on 11% barrels, 50.7% hard hits. So it's very easy to see where he would climb back above a 200 ISO. Yastrzemski, kind of mix and match quality so far this season. We've seen better stretches from Yaz. Most notably, the barrels are down at just 7.8%. Last year, it was 10.5, year before 9.8. He's slashing just 239, 338, 378. But another guy does get on base quite a bit. 21.8% strikeouts is perfectly fine. It's down 5 points from each of the last 2 seasons. Walks are at 12.5. That's up 4.5 points from last year, but it's more reflective of 2 years ago. He can get to first base with a little bit of power upside as well. It's not ideal at 4,100. He should probably be a little bit cheaper. 29 on FanDuel works slightly better. He's very playable. He belongs in your stacks of Giants, but he's not a priority. He's not a reason to go to the Giants. He's just there. Lefty bat with a little pop. Tyler Fitz is interesting. 3,600 at second base. It's the right position. 28 on FanDuel. Slashing 270, 328, 389 after missing a stretch. He only made 139 plate appearances this year. Just a 280 xwOBA is a little bit of a concern so far. Barrels are down, hard hits are down slightly. He's striking out less, and walking a little bit more actually than he did last year. But the results have been lighter than they were last year. Over 341 plate appearances last season, 280, 334, 497. Created runs 32% better than average. Hit 15 homers and stole 17 bases. That is an interesting hitter in a not complete sample, but a half a season. There's upside there. He's only 3,600. That's a very reasonable option. Lamont Wade, we're witnessing a tragedy in action right now with Lamont Wade. I don't know if he like went blind in one eye during the offseason and didn't tell anybody or what the case may be, but 168 plate appearances in. We're at 167, 271, 271 with a 104 ISO, a 285 xWOBA. This is on a guy who was last year 263, 83, 81. The year before 256, 373, 417. Year before that was pretty bad in 251 plate appearances, but that was like when we were first getting to know him. I continue to believe in the player. It's just there was too much quality each of the last two seasons to really be lingering in this kind of territory for too long. Even at 285 xWOBA tells us we should see some improvement there. But it's getting difficult. The good news is he's just gotten exceptionally cheap. Come on. His BABIP this year, batting average on balls in play for the uninitiated, is 211. Last year it was 331. The year before that it was 290. He's still drawing a 12.5% walk rate. That's down for him because he's typically spectacular at drawing walks. Strikeouts at 20.8% are technically down from last year, slightly up from the year before. But given these attributes are kind of what drives a lot of his quality a lot of the time, much of this deficiency so far is driven by some bad luck. He hasn't provided the quality of batted ball, and that's probably why. So maybe it's not luck. Maybe it's something about the swing that we need to investigate and find. But there are explanations for why that's kind of low in the results so far. It wouldn't shock me if Lamont Wade comes back to life at some point. 2,200 on DraftKings. I think he's playable. 25 on FanDuel. I think he's playable. Probably prefer him in the outfield to first base. But like, let's say we just use him as a wraparound. Just consider him a really bad player from the bottom of the lineup for 2,200 with, we need the history to justify the play. But without, we don't know him that well. But we know that he's really good at getting on base. Let's say it's a kid who just got called up, but all through the minors, he was great at getting on base. Exceptionally good. So we're considering him a wraparound from down here, and we're unfortunately sticking him at first base. Then we immediately go to Elliott, Chappie, and Adames. And then you can pick between Wilmer, Jung-Woo Lee, Mike Yastrzemski. Depends on where you want to go positionally. But for that four-man collection, that includes all three of their best bats, and then a guy who is dramatically underperformed, but previously has been very good for $37.25 a piece. So let's say I bolt on first, third. What do I have? I have first, third, short, and outfield. You know what? Let's do it an interesting way and bolt on Tyler Fitz and fill out the entire infield and an outfielder. And then I get a team with two outfielders and a catcher as my secondary. And my premium here is $3,700 exactly for Ramos, Chappie, Adames, Fitz, and Wade to face Steven Kolek. I'll take that upside. 4.31 implied total for the team. We should see some runs. Patty Bailey in the bottom spot, mix and match quality catcher. You can include him in that breakdown. He's very cheap as well at 22. If you just wanted to go like that and like that, and that, 3,400 a man. Obviously, that's not the best way to build that stack. And if you're just looking to build the best possible version of a giant stack, it's just, playing with these guys up here. It would probably be 1, 2, 4, 5, and then make a choice. Oh, wait, no. 1. Oh, yeah, I was reading. I confused myself when I said 5. 5 was the lineup spot. So yeah, those 4, and then make a choice. But Wade makes things interesting at that really, really cheap price in a spot that can wrap back around and put him back on top, if this is the version of the lineup we get. Monty chiming in, too bad that Lamont has fallen off. He has such a natural swing. Watching him swing and miss, you're left in wonder. Enjoying the nature of the show. The price is right. Smash that like button. Love it. Yeah, it's there's clearly something going on there. Let's take a quick look at the swing. 448. I guess we're not getting out by 5, but that's okay. We'll get the site updated real quick when the show's over. Still doesn't chase anything. 99th percentile chase rate. Why does it not have bat speed and squared up for him last year? That's weird. So his whiff rate has actually come down. His swinging at pitches out of the zone has come down. First pitch swing has come down. He's seeing more first pitch strikes on fewer first pitch swings, which is interesting. Just leads to pitchers getting one up on him real quick. 3.3% spike in first pitch strikes and a negative 2.4 in first pitch swings. Yeah, I'm curious about what's going on. They unfortunately don't have numbers for him last year for bat speed and swing length. Still carrying for this year an 89th percentile swing length, which is good. But a 19th percentile bat speed. You can make that combination work, but I'm very curious to see what the change in bat speed was year over year, and apparently they don't have them. Oops. Welcome to the show that will spend more time on Lamont Wade than any other show this week. This is 24 or 25. For update. I'm on the actual board now, not just his player page. This will be my last effort to find him. Yeah, he's not in here. Am I crazy? He made 401 plate appearances last year. Maybe is there a filter on this? What's our qualifier? Total swings qualifier. Just make that. I can't make it 1. 400 plate appearances. He must have swung the bat. We'll make it 200 just to. There we go. 4 with a 26. All right, 72. Here, wait. I know this is thrilling. Hopefully it'll be worth it. See what we can discover. Okay, that's 2024. And then clear that. So we have identified the problem. Yep, that's exactly what it is. It's kind of what I suspected around the edges there. Last year, in 566 competitive swings, had an average bat speed of 72.4 miles an hour with a 26.1% fast swing rate, which means swings of at or equal to 75 miles an hour. So 72.4 average, but 26% of those were over 75 miles an hour, so a fast swing. This year, those numbers have cratered, and it's still a small sample, but it's 200. Yeah, it got mixed up between which is which. It's 250 competitive swings so far this year, so essentially half the sample. The average bat speed has dropped from 72.4 to 69.8, and probably more concerningly, the fast swing rate, the percentage of those overall swings that are at or above 75 miles an hour, has plummeted from 26.1 to 4.8. That's brutal. That's what's wrong with Lamont Wade this year. Hope that was worth the 5 minutes. So yeah, bat speed. But again, any given slate, you get one of those 4.6% fast swings out of them, and maybe. What I'm really looking for, though, if I'm going to Lamont, is that crazy low price and just all these walks, and just get him on base like he used to, and set the table for me up top. That's the reason he'd be in my lineup. Gabriel H is here. What are today's picks, guys? Here's the Gabe. There's the top stacks board. Freeze frame and rewind and freeze frame. Free today via the show. Still behind the paywall at the site. Subscribe over at rotoscouts.com. Under $1 a day, you can access all of it. But we're going through all the picks, Gabe, so don't worry about it. We're doing deep dives on guys like Lamont Wade today. This goes Logan Webb, Giants bats, Padres bats, and then really Stephen Kolek's just mispriced. Mr. Joseph Ryan is definitely interesting here, but it's a high danger spot. For one, you got 4 guys in this projected version of the Athletics lineup that are carrying above the magic number in home run, in the home run model. That's going up against an ace caliber pitcher who is currently carrying a 13.6% allowed barrel rate. That's way over our 10% threshold. 40.9% hard hits is over our 40% threshold, and 90.4 miles an hour of exit velo is over our 90. He's only allowed 3.31% home runs, a couple blips along the way. That could easily be 4+. Comes on a major fly ball trajectory. And this has always been a thing for Ryan. It was more managed last year and probably ultimately lands around these numbers in a full season. That was 23 starts. Year before it was 29, and he was kind of similar. Actually, this is kind of right in between. So this is probably the true nature, but he got unlucky in some of those last year, 2 years ago, and it amounted to a 4.76% home run rate. He also has, added another 2 years of development time and stepped into who he really is as a pitcher over that stretch. So I do believe that this is somewhat manageable in this territory. The real number, in the 3.5s, 3.8s, somewhere like that. But you can always count on Ryan at least being in danger of allowing a home run, especially in a minor league park with excellent hitting conditions. Again, temps in the 80s, wind blowing out 10+ miles an hour today, and all this just true power on the Athletics side. Even if it was being played in Minnesota, we'd be talking about some Athletics bats here. So definitely interested in some A's bats as a hopefully contrarian play against a pitcher that I also plan to have a lot of. Love the upside for Ryan because he's got a 29.8% strikeout rate. He doesn't put anybody on base. 0.83 whip, 3.7% walk, a 2.57 ERA against a 3.50 xFIP. You can see almost a full additional run in the xFIP, but that's still a very good number. 12.3% swinging. So what you get out of Ryan, like with a lot of ace caliber pitchers who give up the occasional home run and some barrels along the way, is a solo shot, a 2-run shot, because there's typically not somebody on base when that big knock happens. So even if it does, it's probably unlikely to completely break his day. He had essentially one lousy game all season. It was against the Braves in Atlanta. He allowed 3 home runs and 6 earned runs. It's obviously the downside. His only other blip of a start, he allowed 2 homers and 4 earned runs over 5 innings on April 3rd against Houston. So his second start of the season. So when you put more than 1 home run, obviously the damage goes up. It seems like a duh kind of a statement. But even in those spots, the 2-homer game, just 4 runs. So it's not like there were a ton of guys on base. The 3-homer game, I'm not sure exactly how it fell, but maybe there was just 1 guy on base for each of those 3 home runs. That adds up to 6 runs. So it's not completely damaging. And you get monster strikeout potential against the team with a 29.5% strikeout rate for this projected version of the lineup. That's pushed up a little bit here at the bottom and here, but you've got several of their absolutely critical bats are in the mid-20s for strikeouts. Jacob Wilson helps with that average at just 5'8", 5'4". He's been tremendous this season. But there are definite targets for Ryan K's here. So dangerous to stack A's? Maybe moderate danger. I called it high danger. It's probably more moderate danger for Joe Ryan. He's walking through Jurassic Park, but the fences are still working. Luis Severino on the other side, 7,800. I don't like the FanDuel price at all, but I probably would roll a couple of dice on him. There are some strikeouts in this Twins lineup, but they're definitely improved, and they're playing in the same premium hitting conditions on the other side. So I don't love Sevy here. I think he's very playable at 7,000 on DraftKings, though, even if it's just near SP2, obviously. I don't think there's an opportunity to go double cheap. But he's pitched to a 4.11 ERA with a 4.03 xFIP. Both those numbers are okay. They're non-tragic. Just 17.9% strikeouts on 7.4% swinging strikes is kind of where the concern comes in. There is a lot of contact available this year for Sevy, but Stuff Plus still loves the arsenal. 7 points above average via Stuff Plus. It's better than Joe Ryan's arsenal, technically. He's allowed just 1.43% home runs on a 13-degree average launch, just 4.3% barrels. So he's at least been managing contact. He's been missing sweet spots and inducing weak and medium contact. And in years past, we've gotten a little bit more strikeout from him. 21-2 in a basically full season last year, 31 starts, 9.4% swinging, but not many called strikes. 107 marked by Stuff Plus is almost identical to this year. He gave up a few more home runs along the way, but it was on very similar contact. 2 years ago, he was giving up more premium contact. It obviously cost him quite a bit. 18.9% strikeouts was dramatically bad that year. I think it was his last year in the Bronx. But prior to all the drop-off and some injuries in between 22, 23, there was a 27% strikeout pitcher there with 12.3% swinging strikes. So on the right day, you could find a little bit of upside for Severino. He has 3 5 strikeout days, 3 6 strikeout days, and a 7 strikeout day so far this season. So that's not completely dead in terms of Ks. He doesn't have the monster upside day, but he's capable of giving you a 1 in 4 kind of a day if you catch him right. That said, at a 5.35 implied total in this ballpark with all their power, I think the Twins are pretty interesting and would be the winning side of that equation if I only got one shot at it. Byron Buxton at 59.36. He's pretty high priced. He's very, very good when he's healthy, though. 15% barrels, 53.1% hard hits. It drives our average up, but we do have a lot of cheap bats to work with here. So having Buxton in the leadoff spot at that price, perfectly fine. 11.33 in the home run model in a homer hitting environment today. Love the upside. 10 home runs, 9 steals, 243 ISO, a 128 WRC plus across 185 chances. He's striking out a lot this year. It's reminiscent of 2 years ago without the walks. We'll see where this goes. Last year, just 25.5 and 5.2. Could be problematic in the long term for keeping a high average, high on base. But if we're just looking at him as power, counting stats, steals, driving some runs, that's perfectly acceptable. Trevor Larnach at 4,031 has 8 home runs on the season. Good enough slash line at 257, 322, 416. Creating runs 10% better than average. Puts good wood on the ball. Over the last 3 seasons has consistently hit the ball pretty hard, and going up against Luis Severino, who at least is allowing a lot of frequent contact, if not premium contact. So somewhere in there, the rubber meets the road between these guys and their ability to put the bat on ball and his ability to keep the bat off the ball. I prefer the bats in that. Ryan Jeffers at 41.27, an affordable DK catcher, 8.8% barrels, 44% hard hits. Hasn't seen great results from it, just a 130 ISO, just 3 home runs, but a 348 xWOB under the covers there, getting on base at a 339 clip, creating runs 7% better than average. You do a lot worse than putting Ryan Jeffers at catcher. Carlos Correa at 3,700, 2,800 is just cheap. He's hit 5 home runs. 327 xWOB is a little bit encouraging from the 247, 289, 388 start that he's had. 41.7% hard hits is down a little bit. It's come down a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Previously, it had been consistent with his prior 2 years of hard hit. We've lost some barrels here. We've gained some strikeouts and cut walks in half. There are definitely some ugly spots around the edges. But again, last year was just tremendous, over 367 plate appearances. I do not believe that in 190 plate appearances we can write off Carlos Correa yet. So 7.63, he can be in my lineup even at shortstop for a cheap price. Brooks Lee, I'm not a huge believer. 237, 276, 342, I think is pretty realistic. A 294 xWOBA kind of backs that up. He's very cheap at second base, but that's about all he is. Ty France at 37, 28. Mix and match quality first baseman and not ideal positionally at first base. 4 home runs, all of which came in a quick hurry at the beginning of the season. 261, 326, 360 overall, a .099 ISO. Boy, did that normalize in a hurry. Still barreling the ball effectively, 8.8, 42.4. But again, a lot of premium batted ball events from early in the season that have fallen off. Still carrying a 350 xWOBA. Maybe something to point to there. Not high strikeout at 15.2, but he was 21-3 last year. Where's the truth? The bat that I really like down lineup, 8.30 in your home run model, 14% barrels, 48.8% hard hits over 76 plate appearances this year, 17.5 against 53.2% hard hits last year. I'm talking about Mr. Matt Wallner. Last year, he hit 13 home runs in 261 plate appearances, had a very good 372 on base, created runs 55% better than average, carried a 264 ISO across that quarter of a season. Didn't get enough opportunity, has been injured so far this year, but was off to a great start. 395 on base, 59% better than average for runs, and continuing to put excellent bat on ball. Matt Wallner, home run pick of the day today in this ballpark against Sevy. Cody Clemens continues to mash. He's hit 5 home runs in 86 plate appearances, 13.2% barrel, 56.6% hard hits. You get him at second base for $3,800 on DraftKings, $2,500 on FanDuel. It's the ideal spot to put a sneaky guy from the bottom of the lineup that nobody else is really going to be that interested in. He has realistic power upside. It's more in this kind of territory, 7.1, 42.4, 6.16, 40.4. The last 2 years. This is a big spike in a small sample, but he's always been capable of putting bat on ball. 5 home runs in 120 plate appearances last year, 4 home runs in 148 plate appearances the year before, and maybe some signs of continuing growth from a young player. Christian Vasquez, mix and match quality catcher at the absolute best. The Athletics are a little interesting. The power upside is undeniable. It's just a matter of how high quality a stack are they truly at just a 4.26 implied total, despite all the upside that they're gaining from the ballpark. Neutral Park, that's a mid-3s total, I would bet. So they are already gaining that upside. They look fine. They look perfectly playable. And there are, again, 4 guys above the magic number for home runs. It's just, even if I guaranteed you that home run today, I don't know that you would go to them because I don't know what comes with it. And obviously we don't know about a lot, but we can make our assumptions. We can make our projections. It's tough. Lawrence Butler's kind of scuffling, 253, 317, 440. He's hit 8 home runs, stolen 9 bases, creating runs 15% better than average, which is the good news. And the barrels and hard hits are right around where they ought to be. So it's been a little bit of misfortune early for Butler. Still a fan of the option, and if you get him in the leadoff role at 4,200, that's dynamite. 32 on FanDuel is more correct, carrying a 10.2 in the home run model today. Strikeouts are up a little bit, but walks are also up. He's giving you some quality even with the disappointing start, and we know there's a lot of upside for a surge here. Wilson's tremendous at 45, 3,000, slashing 357, 396, 504, 324 xWOBA. He's hit 7 home runs. That comes in spite of just 2.8% barrels, 27.4% hard hits. He's able to connect with the ball pretty effectively. Extreme low strikeout, low walk. So you're just buying a ton of available contact. Rooker's down to just 44 on DraftKings. That's too cheap. 35 on FanDuel is correct. 13 homers on the season, a 13.04 in the model today, barreling the ball in 12.8% of his batted ball events, slashing 267, 331, 483, 382 xWOBA, creating runs 31% better than average. He's cut strikeout rate by 5 and change percentage points. Brent Rooker's been downright good this year. I don't really understand the discount. Maybe the home run pace is off, compared to the ridiculous Cal Raleighs of the world, and that's a club that he does belong to. But we've got some good trade-off in exchange for the dip in power. So that's a low price. 4,400 on DraftKings is appealing. If you're just home run hunting, and maybe that's the right way to approach the A's, just pick off the one guy who does homer today, regardless of the nature of the home run. You get a big score out of one dude. Rooker's your leader there. It's clear from the home run model. I actually, from today's Athletics home run pick, I went with Tyler Soderstrom, 11.12, nothing to snicker at. 12 home runs on the season, a 16% barrel rate, a 50.6% hard hit. But gun to my head, which one of those guys hits a home run today? I would pick Brent Rooker. Soderstrom makes for a great pairing, though. First base outfield eligibility for just 41 on DraftKings, just 31 on FanDuel. Even with the downturn for power after the extreme hot start, we're still slashing 261, 333, 469. He's been effective. No issues with it. Shea Langoliers, you're just buying some cheap catcher power. 3,900 is way too cheap for a guy with 10 home runs in the books already at 10.35 in the home run model, 10.2% barrels, 45.9% hard hits. You know Shea Langoliers pretty well by this point. He is a home run hitter, and it's very, very real. So when you can get that bat, that's also an interesting DraftKings one-off because there is very real home run upside for Joe Ryan. So take that cheap price, run with it. Don't stack it with anything. Build stacks from two other teams in the rest of your lineup. Take him as your 5-2-1 one-off. Don't worry about catcher from your primary stacks. There's a lot of appeal there. You just need him to do his job and go out and actually hit you that home run. And then you're not worried about the downside of what goes with the home run. You just take it and run. CJ Alexander at the dead min, mix and match quality right now. Luis Urias does have upside for a little bit of premium contact and power. So far this year, it's been down. Last year at 11.7% barrels, but medium strength as far as the hard hits go. He's managed to hit 6 home runs in 164 chances despite, medium contact. 252, 342, 417. He's been good. 118 WRC plus. Drew Avens still dead min because over the 11 plate appearances so far, he's at 0.91, 0.091, 0.91, 0.091 for the slash line, and a negative 62 WRC plus. Not saying I could have done that because I don't think I think it would be straight line zeros, but I could probably give you a negative 62 WRC plus. Denzel Clark, also very cheap. So what you get out of this team is pick one of those cheap guys if you're choosing to stack the A's today. And among the more contrarian stacks, I do very much believe that the Athletics would be your best bet because Ryan is vulnerable to power. So if you get that 2 or 3 home run day, obviously you've got a ton of upside and you've got a lot of premium bats right there and you can get cheap with them. So if you wanted to do the 5-man exercise, you would go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be the true stack. And that's still only 42.20 a piece. But let's say I'm going to do this to gain access to who's our best shortstop? Lindor? Yeah, all right. Let's say I'm going to do that to gain access to Mookie at 5,300 against Paul Blackburn at shortstop, right? So I'm okay leaving Jacob Wilson out. Now I just go there for 4. And let's go to Abrams at 3rd for the dead min. Either way, we're just doing the exercise to see the price, right? So 37.20 if you're using one of the dead min price options, obviously not far off that if you're using the 22. Or if you just go to Luis Urias at 3,000, you're still averaging down under 4,000 a man, 39.20. So 4,000 if we're rounding up for Lawrence Butler, Brent Rooker, Tyler Soderstrom, Shea Langoliers, and Luis Urias. It's a very cheap stack. So through that lens, there's a little bit of argument to be made for taking the ride with some Athletics. If you're building 150, I think you definitely have a fair share in your portfolio. Probably better for one-offs, probably better for short stacking, but the 5-man is in play and they're very cheap for it. Twins bats, Joe Ryan, A's bats, and Sevy on DraftKings. This is a little loosely 4 corners game, oddly, given that it's the worst hitting environment on the slate. Or the best hitting environment on the slate, excuse me. Jake Swale says Parker Meadows is a beast. Gabriel H is tuning in from Tijuana. Awesome. You partying down there? Is that where you live, Gabriel? Rounding things out with the Mets with Paul Blackburn on the hill. Blackburn, look, we've seen some effective major league starts from the guy over time. Do we want to use that as a reason to attack the Dodgers? I don't really. Not on a slate with plenty of pitching options. It's unnecessary. It probably would knock me out of my chair if he put up a monster score, an effective handful of points, 10, 12 DraftKings points, 20 to 25 FanDuel points, wouldn't completely stun me. It would be a moderate surprise, but it wouldn't completely shock me. But it's a deadly good Dodgers team pulling a 5.31 implied total. If you don't want to listen to me, just listen to Vegas. Right? It's clear that we don't want much Blackburn. He has been effective in the AAA starts this year. 7 outings at AAA, a 3.68 ERA, has struck out 31 of 113 hitters over 29 and a third. He did allow 4 home runs in that stretch, which was a little bit high, but mostly effective. Pitching deep into ball games too in his last 2, 6 and a third and 7 innings. So giving us 7 inning depth, fully stretched out. Again, 5, 6 clean innings, or not clean innings, but serviceable innings are maybe loosely in play. But he's not appealing. On FanDuel, I just don't think you need to go there. Everything's cheap today anyway, so you can get to the highest end pitching. Seems like a challenge. Dustin May has appeal, though. 8,000 on DraftKings is generously low priced. 9,000 on FanDuel is a challenge. I don't love attacking the Mets any more than I love attacking the Dodgers, but you can at least see that Vegas is on our side between the two by a full run. May has a 24.8% strikeout rate in the show this year over 10 starts, 55 and 2/3. And again, we've seen a improving trajectory on that. Last 3 starts, 9, 8, and 8 strikeouts. The 9 came in just 5 innings. He struck out 9 of 20 Guardians, 8 of 24 Diamondbacks, which is difficult to do. 8 of 24 Angels in just 5 innings. He gave up 4 in that one. He gave up 3 in the good start against the Guardians. So you're balancing a little bit of strikeout against run likelihood. It would be not shocking if he, shut down the Mets completely, but it would be a surprise if he limited them to, fewer than, or if he shut them out. Did I say that right? Yeah. It would be shocking, not shocking, but a surprise, if that makes sense. But we've talked about the stuff. He's got a very strong arsenal. It doesn't grade out great if you look at the full by Stuff Plus, but I suspect it's just 1 pitch over the mark this year. That's interesting. Because he's found success. Let me just looking at the pitch by pitch here real quick. +30% whiff rates on the sweeper, the 4-seamer, and the cutter. The cutter's been hit hard. He only really throws it to lefties, and he's only thrown 35 of them this year. So that's similar usage to where he's been. That's not a big change. Where's the horizontal movement? Better ball. There we go. Whew. So 2 additional inches of vertical drop on the sweeper from the average and 3.4 horizontal break on the sweeper above average. Monster pitch. It's all about that horizontal movement. Induced movement without gravity, 3.3 inches of horizontal. Sick. And then the sinker has 1.6. So you get that same kind of action on both those pitches, and it makes it really difficult to distinguish. There's been effective. Those were the pitches where I was expecting the Stuff Plus mark to be significant, but it's actually not, which is a surprise. But regardless, he's found effectiveness with it, and he's more than serviceable here. 4.20 ERA, but a very nice 3.43 xFIP under the covers, 9.3% swinging strike rate. The challenge comes from the quality of the Mets. Three hitters up at the top are all very, very good as far as limiting strikeouts, and you could throw Pete Alonso into that mix this year at just 21.3. That's around the average, but it's not bad by any means, and it's down 3 points from last year, 3.5 points from last year. He's been mashing. He was the home run pick yesterday and hit one. He was very popular, but got an easy one in the books. 12 home runs on the season. He's only 42 on FanDuel is more high priced than the DraftKings price. An appealing option, but not a great spot for the Mets. They're coming in, 429 implied total. They're playable here. They're probably going to be under-owned for their quality here. So I would consider them as at least secondary stack if you're building like two tiers of stacking. Frankie Lindor, 56, 4,000, 282, 354, 491 on the season, a 209 ISO, 13 homers and 10 stolen bases to lead the team in both categories. He's been absolutely tremendous. Nimmo hitting second at 3,600, 2,900, still appealing. The on base is the weird thing that's just kind of disappeared around the edges. It's mostly via not drawing walks anymore, but he also strikes out a lot less currently. 23.5 down to 18.7 this year, but he went from double-digit walks down to 7.8. He's traded some of that for some premium contact, 10.6% barrels, 52.5% hard hits, 9 homers, a 186 ISO. There's some good. There's also some bad in there, but a 344 xWOBA tells me there's more good than bad, and it's a player to chase at those prices. He helps you average down the top 4. Still going to be high priced, but with that in there, the top 4 is now 4,900 on the nose exactly. And Nimmo is a player who is probably at 49 or higher in the past. Brett Beatty at 33 is not a bad way to lower that price. You get Jared Young in the mix now, who's kind of interesting, over 15 plate appearances. He's already hit a home run, does have a little bit of pop in that bat for just 25 at first base, but obviously you would have to sacrifice Pete Alonso on DraftKings to get there. Young, mostly an option on FanDuel, but he's there. Or probably going to be there. Not to skip over Juan Soto in the mix there, though. 5,200, 3,800. The sites are doing the right thing. They're maintaining relatively high prices for Soto. It's down from where he used to be, but they're not panicking. 233, 363, 429, a 195 ISO. Creating runs still 25% better than average. 10 home runs on the board, 7 steals. It's just looks more like Spencer Torkelson than Juan Soto outside of maybe the on base. But the 433 xWOBA tells us everything's going to be fine. The 16.2% strikeouts against 17% walks is directly in line with where he's been over time. There's nothing really wrong with Juan Soto. It's just it's a weird 259 plate appearances. We've seen him go through stretches like this where the balls aren't dropping in on some of his lighter hits, still getting his power, but he's been, 3 years ago in San Diego? He was like a 250 hitter. 4 years ago, 2022, 664 plate appearances, kind of an outlier for his career. 242, still got on base at a 401 clip though. 452 slug, created runs 46% better than average. Struck out just 14.5 against a 20.3% walk rate, hit 27 home runs, his career low for a full season. So maybe that's the version of Soto we're dealing with this year. But I mean, that's still a very good player. Still a guy who can give us a lot of DFS quality. It's just not Juan Soto. It's not a guy you'd necessarily want to pay $1 billion for, but I expect tremendous improvement over the next 250 plate appearances. I think by the end of the year, he looks perfectly fine. Tyrone Taylor, mix and match quality. 5% barrels, 38% hard hits. Just 1 home run, 244, 302, 346. Nothing to write home about. 15 points below average for run creation, but a playable piece in the outfield any given slate. He's got a little pop in that bat. Jeff McNeil, more of a light-hitting BABIP-focused guy. He is getting on at a 358 clip. He's hit 3 home runs, creating runs 29% better than average over just 95 plate appearances. Mix and match. If you play him, he's at second base. Frankie Alvarez, kind of interesting. $2,900 catcher from the bottom spot in the projected version of the lineup. 7.3% barrels and 47% hard hits, kind of in line with last year. Not quite reminiscent of 2 years ago, but there is major, major power there if you catch him on the right day. 1 home run this season, just a .062 ISO in just 92 plate appearances. Last year hit 11 in 338, had a 164 ISO. Year before, in his rookie season, 25 in 423 plate appearances with 228 ISO. Some demonstrable fall off, but it was injury marred last season. It was only a half a season's worth of plate appearances. I think the true nature of the kid is maybe a tick below the premium power that we saw 2 years ago, but probably eventually finds a little bit more consistency. He's too good not to. And then on the Dodgers side, to round out the entire show here, we have Shohei Ohtani at 6,500, 4,800. I feel like I'm doing here we have a lovely item for just $6,500. We can start the bidding at 65, 48 on FanDuel. 22 home runs to sit second in baseball behind Mr. Cal Raleigh. 11 steals, a 182 WRC plus, and a 467 xWOBA. It's bananas high. You could see an increase in all of these numbers given that. 22% barrels, 64% hard hits. Ridiculous. At any price, you play Shohei Ohtani. 53.37 from Mookie. Not overly affordable, especially not in conjunction with Shohei, but gives you plenty of upside. 254, 338, 405, a 341 xWOBA, creating runs 11% better than average. We have lost a little bit of power. 4.3% barrels, 36.2% hard hits, slightly down from last year, significantly down from 2 years ago, but still sub 10% strikeout rate, 10+% walks. Tremendous. It's Mookie Betts. On FanDuel, you get him at second base for 37. Shortstop on DraftKings, perfectly fine. One of the high priority shortstops on the entire slate. 58.41 for Freddie Freeman, perfectly fine. 365, 431, 624, 9 home runs, monster season. Teoscar Hernandez, 12-6, 42-2 in the barrels and hard hits department. 10 home runs and 184 plate appearances, right on pace. 291, 317, 543 to boot. He's been very good with the bat when he's been healthy. 251 ISO, 360 xWOBA, creating runs 38% better than average. And then, oh, look who it is. I almost forgot, no I didn't, that we were going to be talking about Mr. Max Muncy today. Still just 3,800, 2,800. 214 plate appearances. We are now up to 7 home runs after a big surge. He's slashing just 227 on the front end, but 346 as we continue the slash line, 403. On bases around where we need it. He's running a 14.5% walk rate that is right in line with expectations. 15.4 last year, 14.7 the year before. Strikeouts technically down in the small sample at 23.8. He is a 3 true outcomes hitter. He is one of the guys that you could say could be the mold for a 3 true outcomes hitter. And he's doing all of those things. He's also barreling the ball 12.4% of his batted ball events with a 51.9% hard hit rate that sits second on this team. I've been ranting and raving at you guys that Max Muncy was not done hitting yet, and he's back. He's finally engaged in the season. He's been on a little bit of a tear. 356 xWOBA that's been underlying this whole time, providing some of that faith. I think we're finally back. 38-28. He's just cheap. Get him while you can. Get him while he's cheap. He's facing Paul Blackburn today. Love the upside for Max Muncy to go deep again, or at least have a significant score. Andy Pajas at 42, 3,000. 11 home runs for him in 225 plate appearances. He's been very good. 279, 329, 481, a 202 ISO. That comes in spite of just 8.5% barrels, 36.4% hard hits. We know he's got more to give in both those departments, so we could see another surge from Andy Pajas. Had a good weekend, if memory serves. Michael Conforto, 31-25, 3 home runs, but a very poor slash line. He's been seeing a little bit of an uptick recently as well, I think. Conforto, let's do the month of May. Nope, that's too far back. 194, 337, 306. The on base is fine, but just a 91 WRC plus. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just misremembering. Let's do 20 days. Yeah, there we go. Last 20 days, calendar days, not games. 60 plate appearances, 1 home run, 255, 400, 426. Creating runs 38% better than average via WRC plus over that stretch. 1 home run, just 7 runs and 3 ribbies. We don't care about those, but he's hit 5 doubles in that stretch. He's walking at a 16.7% clip, 21.7% Ks, just a 170 ISO, but that is, respectable enough from a guy who's carrying a 111 for the season so far. We know that Michael Conforto is quite a bit better than what he's been so far this season. It's an encouraging last 20 days or so. He's still very cheap at 31.25, barreling the ball in 11% of his batted ball events with a 45.9% hard hit, going up against a very gettable righty. That's an interesting option for cheap to help you bring down the price of Dodgers. Dalton Rushing at 33, if he's in the lineup, mashing so far to start his career. 1 home run, 273, 304, 455 over 23 plate appearances, 182 ISO. Kid is a high-end prospect. We'll see if we get him in the lineup. Tommy Edman, mix and match quality at best. 9 home runs on the board, 247, 287, 487, and a lot of normalization going on. But playable. I like doing something like this. If I'm going Dodgers, I would go there. We obviously, let's see what we can get with our top three, our superstars. With apologies to Teoscar, we're going to skip him at 57, and we're going to go to Max at 38. And then we're going to get it with Conforto at 31 as low as possible. We're under 5,000 apiece, 4,900 on the nose. I have zero issue paying 49 on DraftKings from Max Muncy. Honestly, Michael Conforto is not crazy high. Maybe 45 would be appropriate for like a good version of Michael Conforto. But when that helps me buy Ohtani, Betts, and Freeman for 49 apiece, dynamite. That is a cheap version of the Dodgers stack to throw at Paul Blackburn. There's a ton of quality there, guys. That is exactly the Dodgers stack I would play. If I was building one DraftKings lineup and I had to use Dodgers, which they're one of the most appealing stacks of the day, so why not? That would be the stack I played. There's an argument to be made for using the catcher at 33 instead of Conforto, and then you're pushing your average to 5,000 apiece. Obviously, that's still very expensive, right? We got to find the right bats to play with it. It's a project, but I think it's doable. Dodgers bats, Mets bats, Dustin May, and really don't play Paul Blackburn. Noble RD Entertainment. Yo, what's going on, fella? Larry C says, 15 minutes behind. Thanks for bringing back the gun to my headline. I think I've said it a few times. Itchy leg. So I think that brings us down toward the end of the show here, gang. Only 2.5 hours for a 6 gamer. Seems to be where we land no matter how many games are on. One last look at the pitching board here. Again, Jack Flash at a discount, top of the board. Eat the chalk. It's a good spot. Love Joe Ryan, but facing a very hard-hitting A's team in that ballpark with hitting conditions, there are definitely negatives to that play. I expect he'll give up a home run. It's just a matter of whether it's 1 home run or 2 or 3 home runs. Just a matter of who's on base when that happens. But there's a ton of upside that goes right hand in hand with any of the downside. Love him as the number 2 option, even at price. Webb, probably number 3, just given the quality of that Padres lineup, and that's exactly how it projects, obviously. Price-wise, cheaper on DraftKings than Ryan, more expensive than on FanDuel than Ryan. Either one of those guys in any given lineup is perfectly fine, but my choice between the 3 would just take the chalk and play Jack Flaherty. Dustin May is playable against the Mets at 9,000 and 8,000, but he's more appealing here. Sevy is dicey. 87 on FanDuel especially. Does not play well, especially with Minnesota showing a lot of power against and his low strikeout rates the last couple of years. At 7 on DraftKings, it's more usable. 82, 88 for Kolek is problematic. Don't like it at all at the FanDuel price. Loosely playable at the DraftKings price. Needs some help from that opposing lineup to strike out and to have that ballpark benefit his pitching. Singer, loosely playable. The DraftKings price is okay. Minor amount of upside, but I'd rather be on the Brewers bats. Anderson against the Red Sox, maybe you get a similar game to what he put up against the Yankees. Low strikeout, but some clean innings, but probably not. That said, that is a diminished Red Sox lineup. And the version of the diminished lineup that they're putting up against the lefty is even more diminished outside of the platoon quality of a Rob Refsnyder. Blackburn against the Dodgers is difficult, but there's 3 guys below him on this board that I probably want even less. Savali against the Reds would be the argument there. I don't think there's an argument for Jonathan Cannon or Richard Fitz in a short start. Savali versus the Reds in that ballpark versus Paul Blackburn against the Dodgers for similar pricing, similar downside. There's back and forth there. They're projected right around each other. Don't like either option. Probably wouldn't want either option. I think I would choose to target the Reds rather than the Dodgers, though, if I had to use one of those 2. Save me $400 and go to Savali. 75-80 for Fitz. Yeah, that puts him right around the 4.5, maybe to a 5th inning that I haven't projected for. Obviously, 4.5 isn't a baseball number, but it's just a default in the model that's easy to use. So yeah, I would expect him to maybe pitch into a 5th inning, and then completing the 5th inning comes down to quality. And I would not expect him to come out for a 6th inning. So that's what you get on DK. And at 80, where is he? The hell is? Oh, there he is. 66. That's the argument. That's the argument that I was making. when we talked about that game, is that is a cheap enough price that if you believe in that 5th inning, you might find enough quality there, given the major deficiencies of all these guys. And honestly, you could continue that all the way up to Severino. So there's not a high quality SP2 on this entire slate. It's a very top heavy pitching board, but there are workable options through here. You're rolling similar dice with any of these guys. So you can a little bit play the price matchup popularity game around those choices. I wouldn't bank on 5 even with 80 pitches in the bag from Fitz though. All right, for one, you're going to run up that pitch count a little bit with some decent walk rate guys in this mix. What yeah, it's if they put anything on him, you'd be really, really walking a tightrope, I think, for 5 innings at that pitch count. There are some Ks in there, but to find the Ks, he's also got to run that pitch count up. That's the thing. With that low price, that's what I'd be trying to chase, would be the strikeouts. But, minimum pitches for a strikeout is obviously 3. So, yeah, that can stack up pretty quickly. And I expect the Angels to do at least a little bit of damage. 4.43 implied total in Fenway Park. He's lightly on the board, low faith on the board option, I guess, on DK. But again, there's not a high quality SP2. So that's kind of where it breaks down. I think I'd rather have Savali for 600 less. Tackle the Reds with a more stretched out guy. Not great either, but I would say similar downside with a little bit more opportunity for depth. He's a little bit more, I think, stretched out than that. We're getting into different pricing territory, but I'd probably rather have Singer at 75 or Sevy at 7. Sevy at 7 versus Fitz at 66 is also an interesting enough conversation because Sevy full depth. I think I'd rather have that and just find my $400 savings somewhere. Is there a double spend down you could reasonably do? It would definitely involve Sevy. I mean, if you consider that a double spend down, I guess that's doable. But you're taking both sides. Oh, no, you're not. I was thinking Sevy on the Mets. So that's a reasonable enough spend at 75 a piece. It's not bad. You're tackling 2 good enough offenses and the worst pitching conditions on the slate with Sevy. And obviously a very good Mets lineup with May. But that's probably your double cheap option, is just those 2. And it's super obvious. Anybody who goes double cheap will probably use those 2. If you went like Sevy Singer's not great. If I was going to go to that game, I'd probably, again, just use Savali, even with it's a minor projection offset anyway. So I'm at 65 a piece, 13 total. Obviously, that's appealing price-wise. So it's probably number 1, double spend down, and then number 2, double spend down would be those 2. If not Savali, I would spend more on Singer. But if I was going to spend 75 on Singer, I'd probably just go to the 8 on Dustin May, take the additional upside. But it's an ugly board. We do have a few guys in the home run model who are projected higher than our home run pick of the day, but it's a not robust home run day either. With 6 games on the slate, that's only 7 guys above the magic number, and 4 of them come from the Athletics. So if we're looking at that as like one of those guys ends up hitting a home run today, then you've got pretty thin pickings as far as the games go. So I went with a guy with major premium power down here, 8.30 from Matt Wallner. Could be higher in this ballpark, could be higher on any given slate. Love the upside there. I think Max Muncy is a reasonable choice. I don't know why he's listed here twice, probably from the other Max Muncy. Why would the other Max Muncy still be in FanDuel's price thing? Doesn't matter because this is the correct one. Third base, Dodgers tells us that. But I just now realize that he's in here twice. It's just dumb. They should take guys who aren't in the league out of that salary file. Riley Green, I like the power upside from some of those Tigers as well. Got some right there. We've got Carp up there. We've got Torque above the magic number up there. So the Tigers are definitely hiding some sneaky power. Even Dylan Dingler, again, a reasonably priced catcher right there at 7.48. Interesting slate, guys. 6 games. I think that's all I can possibly say about it. I am scraping the bottom of the barrel of my brain here for things to say about this slate. How do I feel about a Detroit Sox stack? Tiz, I assume you mean Red Sox? I feel much better about a Detroit Red Sox stack than I do a Detroit White Sox stack. I'll say that. I don't mind the Red Sox at all here. 518 implied total. Again, you do get a little bit of downturn for Jarren Duran, lefty, but Tyler Anderson's not exactly a blow him out kind of a lefty. So I'm less worried about that. I would prioritize Rafi Devers, of course. And then I would look to, I guess Refsnyder's got to be part of the equation, but I don't love paying $4,000 for Rob Refsnyder. I'm probably more interested in the raw sense in Romy Gonzalez at 35 with his ability to put bat on ball as demonstrated over the past couple seasons. And then Abraham Toro's been pretty bad against lefties. I would take the upside of Story. So I'd probably be looking like, I assume you're going 5 Tigers, 3 or fewer Red Sox. So it would probably just be like a 1, 2, 3 if I was doing that. And I would forgo the Duran option at 5,000. Obviously depends on who you're using. Actually, no, that doesn't work because I want Torkelson if I'm going Tigers. Devers is in the mix at 3rd because we don't have a priority 3rd. But we do have multiple outfielders that we want. That's a problematic combination. That doesn't click together great in my head because you'd have to go like Rafi, one of the outfielders, because I want both Carpenter and Riley Green if I'm going Tigers, and Parker Meadows is there, presumably. Right, so 3 of our super appealing bats on the Tigers are in the outfield. One of them is at first base. So it would be Rafi, and then you're really disconnected there with Story. Maybe it's Rafi Narvaez Story in a weird configuration. But honestly, if I'm taking, I would probably rather have Dingler at catcher. If you just went with the 3 power bats and getting 2 outfielders in first. I'm just looking if you switched it. So get Refsnyder. Might be better this way. Might be actually better 5 Red Sox, 3 Tigers, just as far as our fit goes. And then I get Devers, Refsnyder, Narvaez, Trevor Story, and from the bottom of the lineup to fill second, Christian Campbell, or just a one-off. It's interesting how those 2 teams fit together, though. That is not an ideal stack to put together, but I like the upside of those 2 teams in combination. Oh, that solves that problem. Tiz saying that I got Romy because Torkelson's not in the lineup. Well, that definitely solves that problem. That's a downgrade for the Tigers lineup a little bit. Nope. Well, that's not right. What happened there? Oh. Didn't copy the right thing. There we go. For some reason, it pasted that link. All right. Confirmed version of the Tigers. Can I just type Red Sox here and have them come up? I can. Look at that. So let's say we go. Do you want all my outfielders from the Tigers? I have catcher already. Romy at first and Story at short. So that does work. That would probably be the way I would do it. Meadows, Carpenter, Riley, Colt, Keith at second. And then Raffy at third, Romy at first, Story at short. 31-4 total, 39.25 a man, so 4,000 a man for the full lineup. It's not bad. That works. Taking Torkelson out of the equation solve the challenge for us. Obviously, again, downgrade slightly to the Tigers lineup because he's not there, but still high quality. Interesting exercise to combine those two teams, though. You can obviously do it different ways, right? Let's say we want to leave, we would want to work Ref Snyder in probably, in which case I don't love taking any of those three lefties out, but let's take the cheapest one out at 37 in Parker Meadows. And then our trade-off would be, there's not a shortstop in that lineup on Detroit. That's interesting. I was going to trade out Trevor Story, but I don't have a shortstop to do that with. So maybe it becomes a one-off there. Well, regardless, that one that I built first would be the way I would probably put that together now. Good way to end the show, though. That was a fun little exercise there. Let me make sure I fix that so that we're back to normal. With that in mind, you guys, absolutely rock. Appreciate everybody here. Anthony Falia, is Brewers okay in single entry? Sure. Yeah, love the upside there. In that ballpark against Brady Singer, no doubt about it. Definitely in play. When we were talking about that game, I built a little stack in the Brewers, I believe. So probably something you could go back and check there as far as the individual takes. Tiz saying Dingler, Romy, Keith, Devers, Story, Carp, Meadows, and Ref Snyder. That works. Yeah, that's most of the guys I had in that lineup is just Ref Snyder swapped in for whoever in your configuration versus the one that I initially built. So yeah, perfectly fine to go that route too. And obviously, you don't have to go 5-3. You can 4-2-1, 4-3-1, and et cetera, et cetera. A lot of different combinations to work with on DK. All right, with that, guys, 43 people still here hanging out. Hit the like button on your way out the door. Subscribe to the channel. Most importantly, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, if we can get that to 1,000, we only need like 50-something people to go. I would really appreciate it. That is the best thing you could do outside of going over to rotoscouts and picking up your subscription for yourself. Weekly, monthly, and quarterlies. Give a weekly a try. It costs you less than $7 to get from here to next Monday. Gets you through the weekend, gets you all the NBA games that are going to go on, all the NHL games that are going to go on in that stretch, Cup finals, NBA finals that nobody's going to watch between Indy and OKC. It's only going to be a 4-game series in basketball, so get it while you can. And then we're out till next year. NHL, I expect that series will go a little bit longer, but yeah, let me wind this down, get the projections up on the site updated, and say thank you guys very much. Thank you, Tiz. I appreciate you, buddy. Everybody else who said thank you in the chat and everything. Appreciate all you guys. Jake calling out that he thinks Joe Ryan gets blown up today with that crazy fly ball rate. Yeah, again, that is problematic in that hitting environment. That's why it could be the multi-home run day for the Athletics. That's your downside. But Ryan also could blaze a trail through those bats and find some whiffs along the way. So interesting back and forth. Probably decides the slate, quite honestly, which side of that comes up, Joe Ryan or the Athletics. I could see that being slate deciding. Anyway, guys, good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share the results when you do. Discord is free and it's linked down in the description. So pop into our Discord, hang out. People in there chatting all the time. It's been overnight's been a little quieter the last couple of days with not as much going on. But jump into the Discord, share any wins that happen, or tweet them at me at rotoscouts on Twitter. Good luck out there. Go win something, and we will see you tomorrow for more. I expect it's a big slate tomorrow. I haven't looked at the schedule yet, but we'll be here. Later, gang.